Story 1. Entitled parents refused to pay for my college, but happily funded my spoiled brother's lazy lifestyle for years. I finally exposed their lies at a family wedding. So, I, 33M, recently attended my cousin's wedding, and there was an incident during the after-party with my parents. My parents and I aren't on the best of terms, and we try to avoid speaking to one another as much as we can. The reason is my younger brother, Jack, 29M, who is pretty much the golden child. Growing up, nothing was ever his fault, and he got whatever he asked for, which wasn't the case for me. The older he grew, the more entitled and brat he became. So he and I aren't exactly in touch either. I cut my parents out of my life after they told me that they wouldn't be paying for me to go to college, and I had to arrange everything myself. That was many years ago, and in recent times we have been civil to each other at family gatherings, but that's about it. Jack and I don't speak at all even when we meet, and I'm okay with that because I don't think he is the kind of guy that I would want to be on speaking terms with either. He is a grown man-child who still lives with his parents and spends most of his weekends playing video games with his online friends while emptying cans of beer. Now, a couple of days ago, I attended my cousin's wedding like I said, and there my relatives and I were just sitting around, chatting and drinking after the ceremony like one does. Out of nowhere, my family came around and joined the conversation, which I thought was a little strange because they usually try to avoid me, but I didn't think much of it. It wasn't as if I could tell them to leave me alone because a lot of people were sitting around us, and it wasn't really a private conversation. Once they were seated, the conversation suddenly turned to me when my dad asked me how my job was going. I'm a banker, and I recently received a significant raise along with my promotion. I celebrated it with a couple of my friends by going out to a bar last weekend, but that's none of my family's business. So, I told him that it was going well and ended my sentence there. But my parents were not willing to drop it, so then my mother asked me if there was something more that I wanted to share with the family. I said no. So, my dad told me to drop the act and said that he was aware of the promotion and the raise. I was a little surprised, but I wasn't comfortable discussing this with so many of my relatives sitting around us. So I told him that I didn't think that it was any of their business and tried to excuse myself so I could go to the ladies' room, but I honestly just wanted to get the hell out of there. However, my father told me to sit back down so we could talk about this like a family. When he said that, I got annoyed because I didn't think of him as my family whatsoever, and I am pretty sure that they didn't consider me family either. And they proved me right when my father said that in spite of earning so much, I couldn't contribute and give back to my parents who had worked so hard to raise me and give me everything that I wanted as a child. And now that they were on the brink of retirement, I was turning my back on them and being incredibly ungrateful and selfish. All my other relatives were either looking at their phones or at the floor because they knew that this wasn't a conversation that they were meant to be a part of. It was a clear attempt by my parents to humiliate me and pressure me into giving them money, and I knew why they needed the money as well. You see, my brother doesn't have a job and is still relying on our parents to provide for him, and his lifestyle is not one that's very affordable. He wants to go out clubbing and drinking with his friends almost every other weekend, and he wants to buy every new gizmo because he fancies himself to be a tech geek or whatever. And these things come at a cost, which my parents are probably struggling with. Both of them are close to retirement now and need to start thinking about life after that as well. They can't exactly continue to support my brother forever, and I knew that they were trying to humiliate me in front of my relatives so that I would agree to send them money to save face in front of these people, and then they would hold that against me and continue to enable the golden child. But I wasn't going to let myself fall for that. And even though I was pretty embarrassed, I decided to retaliate and treat them the same way that they were treating me. So, I snapped at them and brought up the way they had laughed in my face all those years ago when I had asked them to cover my college tuition. They had told me back then that they only had enough funds for one kid to go to college, and that was not going to be me. So, I had to look out for myself, and I kid you not, they had actually laughed when I brought it up with them, as if I had cracked some joke. But I guess it was fair because that's what I really was to them. A joke. However, now that they could see that I was earning and my brother was not, they wanted me to contribute to the family, and I knew that this was just a way for them to continue pouring money down my brother's throat. So, I brought up that incident and told them that they had not spent a single dollar more on me than whatever was necessary, and it only let me live in their house and provided for me up until I turned 18, which was pretty much the bare minimum that they could do for me. And they did it not because they wanted to, but because it was required by the law. So, they needed to stop acting like they did it out of kindness rather than obligation. I didn't even realize it, but I kinda got choked up while talking about it and had to rush to the ladies' room so I wouldn't break down in front of them. I just didn't want to give them that satisfaction. When I came back out, the crowd had dissolved, and nobody was sitting in that area anymore, so I headed out and went back home. I tried not to think about it for the next couple of days, but then my brother reached out to me and told me something that blew my mind. Apparently, the news of our confrontation at that wedding had been doing the rounds of gossip among my relatives, and unfortunately, it had reached some people that my parents wouldn't want in on this huge secret about me having to cover my college expenses myself. They had borrowed money in the past from a couple of their relatives and told them they needed it to cover my tuition as well as my brother's and had promised to return it in a couple of years. But now several years have passed, and they still haven't returned that money. Whenever they were contacted by those relatives, they claimed that they were still struggling financially, even when they weren't and were actually pretty comfortable. They would just be too stingy to return the money that they had borrowed and were using it all to fund my brother's lifestyle. And now my brother told me that those people had found out about their lies because of what I said at the wedding, and 3 people had filed a lawsuit against my parents demanding their money back. They hadn't done that so far because they believed that my parents were struggling and didn't want to add to their troubles. But now that they knew the truth, there was nothing that was going to make them hold back. But my brother wanted me to talk to them and convince them that I had just been lying to save face at the wedding because I didn't want to admit I had been a bad son in front of so many of my relatives. He wanted me to convince them to take back the lawsuits so our parents could think of something to get them out of trouble. I thought that it was a ridiculous idea and declined. But now he and my parents are demanding that I get them out of trouble because I am the one who got them into the situation. So, I am the jerk for telling my relatives the truth about how my parents hadn't paid for me to go to college? Update 1. So, I blocked my brother and I decided to go ahead and post my side of the story online for everybody to see, just in case they had any more tricks up their sleeve. I had a feeling that they would try to make themselves the victims, so I made my move first, and I don't feel bad about it because I'm just telling people the truth. They might have borrowed some more money from people who are not even related to us, and they deserve to be in the loop as well. In a way, I'm just doing good for the world and looking out for other people. My parents and my brother have each other to look out for them, unlike me because I pretty much always had to look out for myself in that household. So now they'll know how I felt. I can't even believe that my brother tried to guilt trip and manipulate me into lying to cover up for my parents and thought that it had worked. To be honest, even while I was making that post, I knew deep down that most people would agree I didn't do anything wrong, and the responses to my post just reaffirmed what I already knew. So, thank you guys for being on my side and not letting me doubt myself. And I'll also answer some of the very common questions that people were asking in the comments. For starters, I'm not familiar with these relatives who my parents borrowed money from, and neither have I ever even met them. So I don't know why they decided to help my parents out, but I guess they were just really kind people, and my parents decided to take advantage of that. That's the only possible explanation I can come up with, and I don't think reaching out to them to figure out why they gave my parents the money right now is a good idea. All I am hoping is that these people have some paperwork or documents to show that my parents had borrowed that money and intended to return it, or else I don't think they even have a case against them, which would be a bummer for me. Some of you had also asked about my grandparents, and I really don't know what to say about that. I hadn't ever really been close to any of my grandparents. My mom's parents passed away a couple of years ago, but my dad's parents are still alive. It doesn't matter though, because I have never been in touch with them, and even they considered my brother to be the better sibling, so they're just irrelevant. They were not the ones who helped me pay for college. Contrary to popular belief, no, it was actually all just me, and I worked through college to pay off my tuition, along with a little help from a couple of my friends and their parents. I did return all the money to everybody that I had borrowed from eventually, after I got my first job, but I never asked for any help from my parents or my family. So I made it on my own, and my parents had no part to play in it. Back then that was kind of disappointing for me, but now I can proudly say that I accomplished it all myself, and that's something I'm really proud of. So, I hope that answers all the questions that you guys had about me and my life and clears up everything. I don't know what's going to happen next with my parents and my brother, but whatever happens, I'm going to keep you guys in the loop. I think you folks are pretty much a part of this now, ha. Update 2. Okay. It's been 2 weeks since my first post here, and like I said, a couple of my relatives are suing my parents for not returning their money, and thankfully they did have proof, according to what I heard. So, my parents are in big legal trouble right now, but for some reason, they are being idiots about it, and instead of focusing on their defense, they think it's a good idea to come after me and try to harass me into taking their side and admitting that whatever I said at the wedding was a huge lie that I made up to make them look bad. They visited me along with my brother a couple of days ago, probably to try and intimidate me or something equally ridiculous. I can understand that desire to set everything right by scaring me into telling a lie about myself because they know that they are in a pretty screwed up situation right now, and their only bet is to make me look like the bad guy. So anyway, they showed up, and I almost didn't open my door because I could see that it was them. But then my brother kept knocking for several minutes, and out of sheer annoyance, I let them in, but I told them to make it quick because I didn't want to waste my day on them. My father was pretty point-blank and told me that he needed me to lie to cover up for them because they couldn't afford to pay back everybody at once and needed me to buy them some time. Obviously, now that the cat was out of the bag, it would be difficult to get it back in, but he wanted me to at least try for the sake of our family and our reputation. I found it pretty ironic that they were talking about family and stuff like that when we didn't even speak to each other for so long, and I'm pretty sure that in a real family people at least talk to each other and don't try to manipulate and use the others to their advantage. I told them that I really didn't consider them family anymore, and they needed to stop bringing that up again and again because it was painfully obvious to me what they were trying to do. They couldn't emotionally manipulate me into taking their side on this, and they definitely were not going to try and guilt-trip me anymore. None of their mind games were going to work with me because so far I know what kind of people they are, and I know that they will stop at nothing to get what they want. So, I wasn't falling for any of their little tricks. And when the emotional manipulation didn't work, my brother resorted to other means. By that, I mean that he tried to force me and threatened to put up dangerous posts to defame me and get me fired from my hotshot job if I didn't comply with them. It was a pretty pathetic attempt because I just told him that if he did any of that, then they could add another lawsuit to their already ongoing list of troubles because I'd also be filing for a defamation lawsuit against them. That shut him up. But my mom got all defensive and told me that I had no right to try and scare him like this, especially after everything that I had done to the family. I didn't like that because I hadn't done anything to the family. They had brought this all on themselves by lying to people and borrowing money from relatives to fund and enable their golden child. I had no part to play in any of this, and for her to make it sound like I was the one responsible for this was just wrong. Because I didn't make them take money from their relatives, never return it, and then come up with stupid excuses to avoid paying them back for years. I didn't raise my little brother to be an entitled man-child with no passion or goals, capable of doing literally nothing. That was all on them. So, if they wanted to pat somebody on the back for that, they could do it to themselves and keep me out of it. I actually said all of this to my parents, and then I told them to get the hell out of my house because they were wasting my day off, and I had more productive and fun things to do. My brother resisted at first and got all up in my face trying to intimidate me and said that I wasn't going to get away with this, and he was going to make sure of that, which was totally hilarious to me because what was he even going to do? Throw his video game controller at me? Or get his 20-year-old online weirdos to cyberbully me? That really ticked him off. And when I told him to brush his teeth more often if he was going to get so close to people to intimidate them, he went completely red in the face, and my mom had to drag him away. But it was pretty satisfying for me to watch him struggle to hold back because I knew that he was powerless here, and so were my parents. And it felt like just a huge victory to me because after years of being targeted by them, I finally had them begging for help. But I was not going to help them. So, they were going to feel exactly the way I had felt when I asked them to pay for me to go to college, and they laughed in my face. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of weeks since my parents visited me, and from what I've been hearing, things haven't been going well for them. My relatives have been saying that they have been going around and telling literally everyone they meet about how they are struggling to keep up with the bills as well as paying the lawyer, and now they also have to worry about how they are going to pay these people back, especially as they are about to retire in a couple of years, and this is just coming at the wrong time. Of course, the easiest solution for them would be to just make their younger son get a real job and do something with his life so he can contribute to the household expenses, but they are not going to do that because they want to spoil him rotten, and they're succeeding at that job because he most certainly is pretty rotten on the inside. They have also been telling people that I felt bad about what I did at the wedding and how I created so much trouble for them, especially after the wonderful childhood that they had given me, and out of guilt I had apparently offered to pay for the lawyer for them. But my parents had rejected it because they had felt very insulted by me at the wedding, and they bragged about how I couldn't buy them out. A couple of my relatives talked to me about it and told me that while they were impressed by how mature and generous I was, they weren't sure if trying to help my parents out was the best thing to do because they weren't exactly trustworthy. I had to reassure them that my parents had been lying, and I had done no such thing as they were claiming. Anytime any of my relatives talked to me about this, I clarified to them that whatever my parents told them was a complete and total lie. Then I told them the real version of what happened, where my family approached me and started begging me to help them out by lying and taking back what I said so it could buy them some time, and then my brother tried to threaten me or whatever it is that he was trying to do. I'm still not sure. And that makes a lot more sense to them than whatever nonsense story my parents had fed them so they don't come out looking bad. It's amazing to me how they still care so much about how their relatives perceive them. They are in so much legal trouble, but they're still trying to portray me as the villain in their story, even when nobody's buying it. I guess their priorities are pretty clear. Literally nothing is more important to them than making me look bad. LOL. Update 4. Okay, so I recently learned that my parents lost all 3 cases against them, and they have to pay back the people they had borrowed money from within the next couple of months, which sucks for them, I guess, but it's great for me. I was really happy when I heard that. Of course, my relatives were the ones who told me about this, and they found out because my parents started whining almost immediately about how I had absolutely ruined them, and now they would never have any money left after they retired. Even now they are blaming me for this instead of acknowledging and accepting that this is just the consequence of their own actions. I can't even begin to imagine the mental gymnastics that it would require to come to a conclusion like this after everything that has taken place. It's not surprising, though, because I always knew that their life practically revolved around me. Even though my brother was the golden child, it was always me who they wanted to put down and portray as the villain in all their stories. So, I guess they're making the most of this opportunity to be the talk of the town for all the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, they don't realize that this is not a good thing, and nobody has any sympathy for them whatsoever. They just want attention, and that's it. They don't care where it comes from and for what reasons they receive it. As long as people are talking to them and about them, they just want an opportunity to whine to people about how difficult their life is because of me, and it's more evident now than ever. Update 5. So, I have great news, and I can't wait to share it with you guys, and I hope that it brings as much joy to you as it did to me. Are you guys ready for it? My brother had to get a job. That's right, I actually feel like the king of the world right now because this is a day that I've been waiting for most of my adult life. The day that I would see my brother pushed into actually working instead of just sitting at home and playing games. I had to work my way through college and make my own path myself while my brother never had to worry about any of it because he had my parents backing him up. But now it feels like the universe has brought justice to our family in the most beautiful and poetic way possible. When I was in college, I had to work as a cashier at the diner to be able to pay for stuff, and I recently learned that my brother has had to get a job as a cashier at the video game store because revenge is a dish best served cold. I couldn't believe it when I heard it, so I had to drive all the way to where he works. I even sacrificed my lunch for it, but it was completely worth it when I saw the look on his face as soon as I walked into the store, and I relished the opportunity to walk around and make him uncomfortable and angry. It was a petty thing to do, but boy, did I enjoy myself. Before I left, I even asked him if our parents cried on his first day of work like they had on his first day of school, and he just flipped me off and told me to leave. But I just loved the sight of that, and I really don't think that this year could get any better. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Discovered that 4 out of my 5 children, age 33F, 30F, 28M, and 14F, are not mine. Wife, 51F, won't give me answers. Note: please do not use ancestry kits as a paternity test. If you genuinely want to check if your child is your own, get a proper paternity test at your local med lab/medical lab. Ancestry tests are not accurate and should not be used to test paternity. In my case, it simply raised the alarm to get a proper test. I apologize if this is not an appropriate sub to ask. I posted this on r/relationships, but it was locked, and the mod suggested I ask on r/parenting. But I also want relationship advice on how to deal with my wife, so I want to ask for advice here, too. First of all, I'm sorry if this ends up being long and rambly. I am not really in the best state of mind. My world has been turned upside down over the last couple of weeks. I just want to write as much context as possible so I can get the best advice needed. For obvious reasons, I am not yet comfortable talking about this with my friends/parents/siblings. Background. I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful children together. Really, I consider them a total blessing, regardless of what I'm about to bring up. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were typical high school sweethearts. We go out together, we never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I am saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband, for example. My work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me. But I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble and never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and take care of our children. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done, and the results of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter, and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the two of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back, and I am indeed not her biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out about my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting, I really wish I had kept it in for her sake. But I didn't. Following this, I asked my other children, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given how long ago it would be. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest, as she is still in school, a teenager, and really, I didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other 3 what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. God, I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care I wasn't their biological father. They were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So, we have paternity tests for each of the 3 done. Not only are none of them my biological children, but together, 4 of my children have 3 different fathers, which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair. She was having multiple. I can't explain how this makes it worse, but it just is. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All for, how the hell am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up, and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me when I bring it up. She will try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school. Do you seriously not trust me? Etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I have rambled and explained what has happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. 1. How can I reassure my children this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I have reacted, total breakdowns, has made them second-guess this, despite however many times I reassure them. 2. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving, and I will need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the villain. 3. Is there any way at all you think I could or should save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life. It's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear-cut leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously. Edit. Thanks so much to everyone for all the support and advice. I have not replied to as many comments as I should have, but I've read each and every one and taken your advice to heart. I'll continue reading any comments or messages you send me. Again, I can't begin to thank you for all your support. If this is resolved, I might post an update, but if she continues to lie, then I don't think I'll bother. as there's not much more I can add. From the advice in this and the r/parenting thread, I've decided to get second tests just in case some freak accident has occurred. Confront my wife with all 4 of my older children present. Tell my youngest of the situation. Ask her if she wants to have a paternity test. It will be entirely her decision. I'm 100% going to get some form of therapy. My mental state has really been deteriorating over the last couple of weeks, and I owe it to my kids to hold it together. Depending on whether my wife tells the truth and what her explanation is, if any, I have not ruled out some form of counseling, but at the moment, I think divorce is inevitable unless she changes her attitude drastically. Contact a lawyer and prepare for divorce if it comes to that. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for the time you took to express your support and share advice. Edit 2. I guess I should clarify some things that people have been asking. How did the ancestry results suggest I wasn't her father? My family is entirely Irish, no relatives outside of Ireland other than my immediate family, and I even have the stereotypical red hair. My daughter's ancestry results showed nothing from the British Isles/Western Europe/Northern Europe. That's what set off alarm bells, but it's by no means conclusive, hence the paternity tests. Which children share the same father? My 2 eldest daughters share the same father. How did your wife conceive your children? Our eldest daughter was not planned. All the others were planned. Each time we conceived several months after we started trying. Our first 3 planned children were both our ideas, while she pressured me into having our youngest. She was in her late 30s and wanted one last child before it was too late, and eventually I agreed. She was conceived several months after we started trying, too. Are you infertile? I don't know. I've never had a fertility test done, but the fact that none of our planned children are mine makes me think that I might be. I will have a fertility test as soon as possible. Note: Opie also posted the same post in r/parenting and r/relationships, but both instances were removed. Overall, commenters in all 3 subreddits were encouraging OP to tell his youngest, consult a lawyer before confronting his wife, and trying another paternity test in case the first one was wrong. All of the important questions and suggestions are addressed in the edits to the original post. Update 1, April 2, 2019. I have received a lot of messages/comments asking about an update and countless remind me comments. I am unsure how they work, but I assume they are also after an update. I will post an update, but it will not be anytime soon. This entire mess will take a long time to make any sense out of. I don't know when I will post an update, but it will be weeks from now at a minimum, if not months. But I promise it will come eventually. Once again, thanks for the tremendous support everyone has shown me. Update 2, March 1, 2020. I've been debating whether or not to post an update because nothing was ever resolved. I decided I would post it here in case anyone is still waiting for one. I apologize for not updating earlier when I promised I would. My kids and I confronted their mother shortly after making that Reddit post. It really didn't go well. I think the prospect that no one believed her finally hit home because she completely broke down and apologized profusely but refused to explain herself or anything that would give myself peace of mind. For the next few weeks, we barely said a word to each other. I was hoping she was thinking it over, and I expected her to eventually sit me down and explain herself. I figured she was so far deep in a lie that got out of control. She needed time to think things over. No. I came home one evening to find she had committed suicide by overdose. So I lost the love of my life, and I'll never know what mistakes she had made. I really wish I could go back in time and forget about it all. Whatever mistakes she made, I honestly wanted to work through it, and now I'm just riddled with guilt that I pressed her for an answer. The worst part of this entire ordeal was watching my kids work so hard to keep me together after having lost their mother. Anyway, please tell your family you love them while you have the chance. Now on to the next story. Story 3. BFF's boyfriend kept flirting with me for months, then pushed me onto a bed at a party, so I finally told her everything. Now I'm dating his friend, but he won't stop stalking me. Hey everyone. I am in deep trouble right now, and I fear that I might lose my best friend because of the mess. My best friend's boyfriend has been openly flirting and hitting on me for a while, and he recently took things way too far than he should have. I will tell you everything that happened and would appreciate it if you guys could tell me how to go about this situation. Michaela, F26, and I have been best friends since we were 6 years old. Our dads are business partners, and our moms quickly became friends too, joining us on picnics and during playtime. We practically grew up together, sharing everything from our toys to our dreams for the future. We even ended up going to the same college, and our bond only grew stronger over the years. 2 years ago, Michaela met Sean, M26. They instantly hit it off. He was a member of this book club she often went to. I never had a liking for books, so I never joined her to go to the place. She was attracted to Sean from the start. We even discussed him a lot whenever we usually met, which was almost every day. Honestly, I couldn't blame her. Sean seemed perfect for her. Genuine, honest, and completely head over heels for Michaela. He noticed every little thing about her, from the way she liked her coffee to the way she always hummed when she was nervous. Michaela and I had made a deal in our high school days. If either of us got serious about a guy, the other had to approve. So when Michaela introduced me to Sean, I was ready with my checklist and judgments to see if the guy was worth my best friend's time. But Sean passed with flying colors. I knew in a moment that he would keep my best friend very happy. He was charming and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me too, probably because he knew how much Michaela valued my opinion. I approved of him without a second thought. They dated happily for about a year and a half, and I was thrilled for Michaela. I saw how they knew each other inside out and completed each other's presence. She seemed happy, and Sean seemed like the perfect boyfriend. Then about 6 months ago, something changed. Sean started acting differently. It was unnoticeable at first, but I was quick to see the shift in his emotions. He began to distance himself from Michaela a bit and started interacting more with me whenever we met outside. He'd come sit beside me instead of her. He'd pay more attention to what I want to do, eat, or drink. Michaela never noticed his behavior at first. Even I thought maybe he was just trying to be a good friend to me as well, since we were all pretty close. But then it started to get weird. He began sending me late-night texts. The first time he messaged me post-midnight, it was to ask if Michaela would like it if he sent her flowers to the office. Why strange? He already did that before and she was pretty impressed. I did not understand why he wanted to ask me again. However, I did send him a message back and told him to go ahead. Then the nature of the messages changed. He started initiating conversations that did not concern Michaela. He also started sharing reels with me on Instagram that are meant for couples. For example, he sent me a reel where it said that my zodiac sign and his zodiac sign are very compatible and will prove to be the best lovers. If that is not stupid, I don't know what else is. I totally stopped seeing his forward messages and reels. Slowly, he'd compliment my appearance, tell me how much he enjoyed spending time with me, and even make comments about how I was different from Michaela in ways that made me uncomfortable. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he was just being friendly and I was overreacting. Then, one night at a party, he made me really angry. Michaela had gone to the bathroom, and Sean came over to me. He put his arm around me, much closer than what I'd consider friendly, and whispered in my ear, telling me how beautiful I looked and how he couldn't stop thinking about me. I pulled away, laughing it off awkwardly, but inside I was freaking out. I wanted to punch him in the face but smiled to hold my legs in place and not do anything idiotic. I didn't know what to do, so I left them and joined my other friends. I still remember how his eyes traveled across my body, and he was not even drunk. None of us touched a drop of alcohol by then. I stayed away from them for the whole evening. While he danced with Michaela, he'd secretly look at me, wink sometimes, and that's when I told Michaela that my mom needed some help at home, so I was leaving early. The next day, I received an expensive necklace in the mail with a note from Sean saying it was a little secret. It made no sense to me. Why should we have any secrets at all? He never gifted Michaela something as expensive as the jewel he sent me. It's not right to take it from him. I gave it back and he didn't seem very happy. I also knew I couldn't keep this strange behavior of Sean hidden from Michaela any longer. It was making me feel guilty, but I also didn't want to hurt her. She was my best friend, and I knew how much she loved Sean. I decided to confront Sean first. I told him his behavior was inappropriate and he needed to stop whatever he was doing immediately. He apologized and blamed his changed manner on stress and said he didn't mean to make me uncomfortable. He promised he would never do anything like that again. But things didn't get better. Sean kept finding ways to be alone with me, and his advances became more frequent. I would have kept quiet and stayed out of their way if not for that night when Sean crossed the line. Sean has a best friend named Kevin, M27. They both played basketball together for a while. Now, I had feelings for Kevin. He is the kind of guy I would like to have as my partner. I think it's an open secret among us three that I wanted to date Kevin. It's just that I did not gather to admit our feelings. It was Kevin's birthday last week, and he invited us to a house party at his place. And let me tell you, Kevin's parties are usually bold and loud. He is rich and has all the resources to make the night memorable. Michaela suggested that I confess my feelings to him that night, so we girls decided to go shopping for some cool outfits. When we were hopping from one shop to another, Michaela received a call from Sean. He wanted to join us. I was quick to say no. I wanted it to be a girls-only day. Lately, Sean was joining us everywhere, and we hardly got any time to do some girl gossip. But Michaela requested that I let it go for just this one time. I agreed for the sake of my best friend. Sean did not talk to me much and stuck to Michaela. I was glad that he was not disturbing me. How wrong I was. When we went to this pretty shop that was selling cocktail dresses, I noticed that Sean was looking at me continuously. I guess I even saw him click a few pictures of me in the clothes I was trying on. I cannot say for sure though. That is why I did not confront him on the day either. We went back home after that and decided to meet the next day at Kevin's house. Sean offered that he would pick us both up, but I refused. I knew he'd come for me first, and I didn't want to travel with him alone, even if it was for 10 minutes. I took a taxi to Kevin's place. Well, it was the best night of my life. I managed to down some drinks and told Kevin how I felt about him, and he also felt the same about me. We kissed. It was fun until Sean decided to ruin it for me. I was buzzed and my head was swimming, but not so much that I wouldn't understand what was happening around me. Sean came to me laughing. He said he wanted to show me something that Kevin has. For once, he looked like the old Sean who joked around with me like a friend, so I went with him. We went to Kevin's room, and he showed me this huge magazine collection that Kevin had. I was laughing on top of my lungs because all those magazines were very funny. Nobody would want to be caught with those in their friend circle. We were joking and saying stuff when suddenly Sean nudged me on my shoulder, and I tripped and fell on the bed. Hey, I wasn't even that drunk. It was completely intentional. He pushed me way too hard. When he took one step towards me, I knew what his intentions were. I quickly got up and slapped him across his face. I kept my temper in check for so long, but how could I keep calm when it was clear what he was about to do? I exited the room and went straight to Kevin. I told him something important came up and I must leave. He understood that I was angry and promised to call me later. I also gave Michaela a short goodbye and left. I was planning to talk to Sean the next day and give him a serious warning to not mess with me, but Sean called me that night. I avoided his calls, but he kept disturbing me. I wanted to shut down my phone but didn't do so because if someone else called for an emergency, I wanted to be available. I finally answered and snapped at him. I thought he'd apologize, but he said that I purposefully dropped on the bed and let him on, gave him a sign that he can come toward me. He told me that if I opened my mouth in front of Michaela, he'd tell her that I always wanted him in bed with me. I was shocked. I never let him on. I never wanted him, not even in my nightmares. As promised, Kevin called me the next day, and I told him what happened in the party. He didn't seem surprised. He said that Sean was always talking him out of confessing his feelings to me. He went so far as to say that I might not be interested in men. I was shocked to know how he was desperate to keep Kevin as far away from me as possible. It's been 5 days since the incident, and I avoided meeting Sean or Michaela during this time. I am very confused about what I should be doing. I really want to tell my best friend about her boyfriend, that I made the mistake of approving him in the first place, but I also saw how much Michaela loved Sean. She even mentioned to me that one day, if all goes well, she'd want to be the mother of his children. If I told her how Sean was eyeing me inappropriately, would she trust me or him? What if he tries to make me the villain and Michaela falls for it? She has known me for long, but I have seen relationships fall apart because of such differences. Kevin wants me to tell Michaela about whatever happened. Even I know that telling her is the right thing to do. She deserves someone better, someone who is more loyal to her. But I am also scared that this will ruin our friendship. Even if she supports me and not Sean, she might not be the same person to me. I don't know what to do, everyone. If you've been in a similar situation before or if you think you can help me with the right decision, please let me know. I am very stressed. I am not even able to concentrate on my work or eat properly. Mainly, I do not want to lose Michaela and her friendship. What should I do now? Should I tell her that her boyfriend is a jerk? Update 1. Thank you so much for your suggestions. Believe me, I read each one of them and I find all of them equally useful. It's been a month since I left the post on Reddit. So much happened during that time, and I thought I'll leave an update to let you guys know about the status of things. I finally told Michaela about Sean. This did not happen overnight though. Even after most of you suggested that I tell her about her boyfriend right away, I waited. I was very scared. Remember how I told you that Kevin and Sean played basketball together? As usual, they joined other guys and went to the ground. Kevin stopped talking to Sean after the incident on his birthday. We started dating, and no man wants to be nice to a guy who insults his girl now, right? So while playing, Sean started taunting and making Kevin angry. He said a lot of things about his mom, me, and his sister. Kevin kept his cool, but things went out of control when Sean purposefully tripped Kevin, and he hurt his left leg real bad. He was immediately rushed to the hospital because the other people thought it might be a fracture. One of the guys called me and said that Kevin hurt himself. When I got to the hospital, he also told me how Sean was trying to get on Kevin's nerves and intentionally came in Kevin's way while he was passing the ball. I spoke to Kevin, and he also told me that whatever happened was no accident. I was patiently waiting all this time, thinking about my best friend's feelings, but if things were turning violent, it was high time that she knew the truth. I called Michaela and asked her to meet me at our usual cafe. She was very happy when she walked in the door, and I felt guilty that the things I was going to tell her will rip that smile off of her face. That is why I hesitated for the first few minutes. But I remembered how Kevin looked on that hospital bed. I told her everything. I showed her the texts, the necklace, and recounted every uncomfortable encounter. She was devastated. But Michaela wasted no time and called Sean to join us. She confronted Sean. He denied everything at first, but when she showed him the evidence, he couldn't keep up his act any longer. I thought he'd cry and say sorry, but he stood up and started insulting Michaela. He said that she was not as pretty as me. He went so far as to say that she must feel blessed that someone as handsome as him was even entertaining her. I tried to interrupt, but he held my hand and began pleading with me. He said he loved me and his feelings were genuine. He'd always be by my side, and there is nothing in this world that he'd want more. I felt disgusted. He insulted my best friend, broke her heart, almost cheated on her, and now he was telling me how we'd be perfect together. I shoved him away and rejected his proposal. I told him how much I hated him and that I didn't want to see him again. Michaela and Sean broke up in the cafe that day. That stupid person was not even ashamed of what he did. He was more worried about my rejection than the breakup. I took my best friend away from that place. Michaela hasn't spoken to him since. But as I initially thought, our friendship has been going through a very tough time ever since. Michaela wouldn't talk to me like before. She hardly says anything to me. We don't meet that often. When I asked her if she was angry with me, she said she didn't blame me, but I could tell things weren't the same. She's hurt, and I feel responsible. I reach out to her every day, but she talks to me like she talks to everyone else. The spark that we had in our friendship is gone. I don't know how to get it back or if I will ever get it back. Should I have kept my mouth shut? Update 2. Hello everyone. I hope you are all doing well. I noticed that it has been 3 months since my last update. I am so sorry. I was planning to reply to your comments sooner but did not find the time. Thanks for all your concern and well wishes. Let me not waste time and tell you that Michaela and I are doing really well. Our differences are now sorted, but I won't say that everything is back to normal. We have new headaches to deal with. Let me start from the beginning. Even after a month of the breakup, Michaela remained sad and distant. Our conversations were small and awkward. It was like there was this big elephant in the room that neither of us wanted to talk about. I could see the hurt in her eyes, and it killed me that I was part of the reason she felt that way. One day Kevin suggested that we see a counselor. First, I said no. I thought we could handle it ourselves, and I didn't want to drag a stranger into our personal issues. But Kevin said that a professional would be able to guide us better, and he really believed it could help, so I eventually agreed. We started seeing a counselor, and Kevin was right. It was better than staring at nothing and saying 2 words to each other every 5 minutes just to fill that awkward silence. I learned a lot about what Michaela was feeling. She blamed herself for what happened with Sean. She thought I was so hurt and couldn't even reach out to my best friend because she was too busy with her boyfriend. Michaela felt like she wasn't a good friend. In one of our sessions, I told Michaela otherwise. I told her she was the best friend anyone could ask for. I was worried she would blame me for everything and break our friendship, but she surprised me. Michaela respected our bond more than her romantic relationship. She placed her trust in me, and that meant everything. Our counseling sessions were very emotional, but they were worth our time. We cried a lot, but we also talked a lot. It felt like we were breaking down walls that had built up between us. Michaela told me she wants to take a break from dating, and I completely understand. She needs time to heal, and I'm here for her. On a brighter note, Kevin and I are going strong. He's been such a rock for me through all of this. We've been doing cute things together like having picnic dates in the park, cooking dinner together, and watching movies. He even surprised me with a handmade scrapbook filled with photos and little notes about our time together so far. It's been amazing, but the trouble is with Sean. He won't leave me alone. He calls me multiple times a day from different numbers. I've had to change my number twice already. He shows up at my workplace, and it's so embarrassing. My coworkers are starting to notice, and it's making my job difficult. Sean also sends flowers to my house with creepy notes attached. I've blocked him on all social media, but he keeps finding ways to contact me through new accounts and emails. One day I found a postcard in my mailbox with no return address. It was from Sean, saying he missed me and wanted to talk. That was the final straw. I decided I couldn't take it anymore and started looking into legal options. I'm planning to file a restraining order and a cyber harassment complaint this week. I've been collecting all the messages, emails, and evidence of his harassment to present to the authorities. The stress from Sean's behavior has been affecting my mental health, but I'm determined not to let him control my life. Kevin has been incredibly supportive, helping me document everything and even coming with me to the police station to file the report. Michaela has been supportive too. Even though she's dealing with her own pain, she's been there for me. We've had many heart-to-heart talks, and our friendship is stronger than ever. We've made a pact to always communicate openly and never let anything or anyone come between us again. So that's where I am right now. I'm focusing on my relationship with Kevin, rebuilding my friendship with Michaela, and taking steps to protect myself from Sean. It's been a tough journey, but I'm hopeful that things will get better. I know I have a long road ahead, and I will come back with an update soon. Update 3. I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening since my last post. A lot has changed, and thankfully things are looking up. First off, Sean is finally out of my life. After I filed the restraining order and the cyber harassment complaint, he found out about it. He came to me, begging me to take it back. He said he was sorry and that he didn't mean to scare me, but I refused. I told him that's not how it works and that his behavior was unacceptable. I made it clear that if he continued to trouble me, I would have to take even more strict measures. We had a huge argument. Sean kept insisting that he loved me, but I wasn't hearing any of it. I stood my ground and told him that his idea of love was toxic and harmful. He left, still trying to convince me that he cared about me, but I was done listening. That was the last I heard from him. A few weeks later, some guys from the basketball group told Kevin that Sean had started seeing another girl. I also heard that they are really bad company and everyone is avoiding them. Apparently, the girl he's with now is rude and violent. I felt a strange mix of relief and pity. Relief because Sean was finally out of my life, and pity because he was dragging someone else into his mess. But honestly, I didn't want to know anything more about him. He was no longer my problem, and I needed to move on. In better news, Michaela has been doing amazingly well. She started her own boutique, something she's always dreamed of. It's a small shop, but it's beautiful and perfectly reflects her style and personality. She's really found her passion, and I couldn't be prouder of her. As for me, things at my workplace have been great. I've been getting more responsibilities and positive feedback from my boss. It feels good to be recognized for my hard work. I've been focusing on my career and personal growth, and it's paying off. Kevin, my wonderful boyfriend, has started his own real estate business. It's been a learning curve for him, but he's doing great. Reflecting on everything that's happened, I'm grateful for the support I received from you all. It wasn't easy to deal with Sean and the fallout from his actions, but knowing I had a community that understood and supported me made a huge difference. Your advice and encouragement helped me stay strong and do what I needed to protect myself. Thank you so much once again. Cheers. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Husband's entitled son nearly burned our house down while I was home alone with him. When I told my husband, he said I'll never be a real mom and to shut my mouth. I've been with my husband for 4 years, married nearly 1. He's been previously married and has 2 kids from that marriage. A boy, 14, and a girl, 16. I found myself becoming increasingly more and more resentful of his kids. Before you come at me, let me explain. So, my husband is 10 years older than I am. He got a vasectomy during his previous marriage and, first of all, he didn't tell me this when we started dating. We started dating, honestly, 4 years ago. I was organizing this protest, and he happened to be one of the police officers that was there, just making sure everything was going to go smoothly. I took a chance and asked for his number, and he actually gave it to me. He was just newly divorced at the time, and so we wanted to take it slow. After about 2 years of dating, we bought the place we're currently in. It's this lovely little cabin about an hour away from a major city. It's on about 5 acres of land, and we have horses and chickens. It's honestly always been a dream of mine to live where we are. It's perfectly secluded and yet close enough to drive into the city if we need anything. The only thing is, it's a bit far from my work. We originally chose it because it was sort of in the middle of work for the both of us at the time. He worked an hour north of our place. He wasn't willing to transfer to the city that I currently work at because his kids live in the town he's stationed in. So, we compromised and said we were going to try to find a place in the middle of where we both work. I didn't make a fuss about the location because I was so enthralled by the beauty of the place and the land, but the commute in the winter is brutal. Takes me an hour and a half to get to work, both ways. On top of that, my family and friends all still live back in the city. One of my best friends just had a baby, and she doesn't want to drive out here. A lot of my friends don't want to commute out here to hang out, so they're constantly asking me to come into the city or hang after I'm done work, but sometimes I just want to go home, even though it takes me an hour to get home. It's all starting to add up, but that's all to say that I do love my little cabin. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, but we made it our own. Anyway, shortly after my husband and I moved into our home, his son would come every second weekend to stay for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Sunday, we'd have to drive the hour up north back to his home or to a gas station or something halfway so his mom would pick him up. My husband's daughter didn't come to stay with us because she wasn't speaking to him. She's still salty about the divorce and is mad at him for leaving her mom. So, anything we could get out of them was lovely at first, even if it was just his son. His son, I'll call him Kin, really took to me from the beginning. He would hug me, he made me gifts, he wanted to spend time with me. He was the cutest boy. I was a stepmom and totally loving it. Little things started to happen that sort of raised my eyebrows. He wanted to cuddle with us and sleep in bed with us because he took bad dreams. But I had to draw the line there because I just didn't feel comfortable sleeping with him in our bed. That was all fine and dandy as my husband then went to go and sleep with him over the weekend in Kin's bed. Originally, he would just go down and lay there until he fell asleep, but then he'd actually fall asleep and just stay asleep, so I'd be sleeping upstairs alone all weekend. The way the cabin is, Kin's room was in the basement. It was all nice and renovated. It wasn't at all dark and dungy, so before you come at me that it was cruel to do that to him or no wonder he was having nightmares. No, it was a beautiful finished basement. He even helped with the renovations. The master room was on the second level. The only reason this bothered me was that my husband started getting deployed away from home for days, sometimes weeks at a time. So, sometimes the only time we'd get together were the weekends. Well, if those weekends landed on when Kin was coming to stay, we would really ever get together time. Now, also, I will say Kin was 12 years old when he wanted to sleep in the same bed as us. The whole my husband sleeping with Kin fiasco. Kin is now 14, and he's still pulling the same stunt. Is this normal? I'm not sure. Maybe I was raised differently, but I feel like it was a little old to be doing that. Not only that, but sometimes he'd creep upstairs to scare us. One time he had gone to bed, and he was downstairs for a good 45 minutes. I was getting ready for bed and changing, and he jumped right into our room to give us a jump scare. But the problem was that my top was off, and so he got to look at my bits. He quickly turned around and apologized and went downstairs apologizing. But the damage had been done. I was mortified. My husband tried to laugh it off, and I literally had to tell him how wrong and inappropriate it was. I was like, he's not just a child anymore. He's literally going to be a teenager. Yeah, a body is a body, but I'm not even his bio mom. I love the kid dearly, but enough is enough. So I had to tell my husband to go and have a talk with him because I was super uncomfortable about it. So he hummed and hawed a bit before he went downstairs and told him that he shouldn't come upstairs past a certain time at night, and if he needs us, he can yell at us from the bottom of the stairs. Then I sort of said that he babies him too much. Well, that sort of started an argument. My husband goes to say that he is his baby and always will be, and he's a sensitive kid. He's like, "What do you expect me to do? Spank him?" And I'm like, "Okay, whoa, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying there's ways to discipline without violence and by actually teaching a lesson. How's a kid supposed to know right from wrong when I'm clearly upset and he sees you laughing at my face? Then he learns that that sort of behavior is okay and even funny. I'm not trying to traumatize Kin. Like, what if I had been fully naked? Well, he didn't like me saying that, so he went and slept with Kin anyways. Also, if you say why were you changing with the door to our bedroom open? Well, I thought Kin was good and asleep. I didn't think I'd have to worry about him jumping in and seeing us, but I guess I was the a-hole that night. I just think Kin is just a bit childish for his age. I don't ever remember behaving the way that he was at that age, and I think my husband and his ex just sort of baby him and enable that behavior. He doesn't even know how to use a vacuum or a screwdriver for crying out loud. When we were doing our renovations in the basement, Kin wanted to help, so we let him help, and we were asking him to replace the outlet covers. Well, we had the covers that had 2 screws. I gave him a screwdriver and told him to just screw in the new one. Well, he was having a heck of a time because he didn't know how to use a screwdriver. I feel like that's not really rocket science. So he was getting frustrated and then ended up throwing the screwdriver on the floor and telling me that he didn't want to do this anymore. So I tried to be patient with him and still keep him involved somehow. So I was like, "Hey, why don't you vacuum the little bits off the floor?" I was working on the ceiling at the time, and my husband was outside cutting baseboards. So then he picks up the vacuum and he's like, "How do I turn it on?" So I show him the button to turn it on. So he turns it on and he starts vacuuming, but then he's looking at me like, "Am I doing this right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, right on, good job." But then he's not really moving big things out of the way or moving things in order to get all of the bits off the floor, and it just kind of looks like he's doing a half-assed job. But instead of looking like he's purposely missing things, it just seems like he legitimately doesn't know how to vacuum. So I'm like, "Wow, great." And then my husband comes in and he starts praising him like crazy and acting like he's made of gold. He didn't even really try to say like, "Hey, over there," or "Hey, you missed a spot." Like, am I wrong here? That brings me to the main part of the story. So there were a few times that my husband had to work the weekends that Kin was supposed to come over, and instead of missing out on coming over, Kin would ask his mom if he could still come by and stay the weekend even though his dad was gone. And his mom asked me if that would be okay. And I didn't want to be the bad stepmom or seem like I didn't love Kin or didn't want him around. I mean, I didn't see him as a bad kid. He just sort of annoyed me with how he behaved so childish. And as a stepmom, I felt like I couldn't really discipline him or like help in that department. I felt like it wasn't my place. So I'd have to kind of tell my husband how I'd feel. but then he didn't really listen to me. He was more offended by his parenting style than anything. So eventually, I just stopped saying stuff and just put a smile on my face and played the game and tried to be the cool, chill stepmom. Anyways, so recently Kin comes over and we're hanging out and he said he's hungry and wants a snack. So I say there should be some instant noodles in the cupboard if he wants, or I can make us a yummy plate of cheese and crackers or something. He's like, no problem. I'll make the instant noodles. So he's in the kitchen and he's gone for a little while and I don't really hear the microwave or anything. Curious, I get up from the couch and I head to the kitchen, and I see him sort of looking at this thing of instant noodles and scratching his head as if it's some sort of alien dinner. I'm like, having trouble, buddy? And he's like, how do I make this? The noodles are dry. And I literally had to pick my jaw off the floor. Then I walked him through putting the water in, putting the mix pack in, and putting it in the microwave. So the next day I'm taking a nap upstairs and he's playing his game on the couch. Then maybe about 20 minutes later, I'm woken up to these awful electrical noises and Kin screaming. I run downstairs and the kitchen is full of smoke and the microwave is all up in flames, and the flames are literally up on the wall and the wall is on fire and then it's quickly making its way up to the ceiling. Kin's freaking out and thankfully I remember there's a fire extinguisher under the kitchen sink. So I grab it and start extinguishing this huge fire. Once it's out, I start crying because of all of this adrenaline and how scared I was. And I'm seeing the damage to the wall. It's all charred and we quite literally live in the woods, so the wall is made of tree logs. Literally cannot fix this. Kin is sobbing and he's saying, I'm sorry. And I just sort of lose it and yell at him to go downstairs. I crack all of the windows open and start the fan so the burning smell will go away. Then I see in the microwave what looks like could have been an instant noodle thing. So it looks like he didn't put water in it and just put the noodles in dry, and that's what started the fire. Honestly, I can't. I called his mom and told her what happened and said that I wasn't sure how safe the house was with the chemically electric fumes. And so I asked if she'd be willing to meet us halfway so that Kin can spend the rest of the weekend at home. She was totally okay with it and apologized profusely. I called my husband and told him what happened, and I even texted him photos, and he literally just laughed and said, "Whoa, that's not good." And I said, "That's it? That's all you have to say?" And he said, "Well, I'm just glad you guys are okay." And I said, "Your son nearly burned down our home." And he said, "But it didn't burn down because you were there." And I said, "What if I hadn't been here?" I said, "Your son is 14. He should know better. He's old enough to be at home on his own. What if I wasn't here, or what if he was back home with his mom and did the same thing?" This was bad, really bad. I said, "This is the product of babying your son." And then he lost it on me and said that I was overreacting. And I said, "Our house is permanently damaged because of him, and we can't just take a log out of our home and replace it." I said, "How am I ever going to be respected by his kids if my own husband can't even respect me enough to listen to me?" He said that I was being the evil stepmother and that I should know my place. And I said, "Oh, what place might that be?" Then he says, "You can't come in and act like you're their mother and try to change everything." And I said, "I have never ever, not once, tried to replace their mother. I'm trying to explain to you that your son is lacking the basic skills of life because you've sheltered him from the world. You keep giving him that silver spoon, and if you're not careful, he's not going to make it in the real world." Then he told me that I was a dumb idiot and didn't know what I was talking about. I'll never know what it's like to be a mother because he's never going to give me children. I said, "You can't possibly mean that." And he said, "I mean every word. You need to learn to shut your mouth." And with that, I hung up the phone. So now he's staying wherever he is for work, and I told him to stay there in a hotel. I said I don't want him to come home. I said he couldn't have cared less if it even burned down. I'm here, and I just spent my weekend trying to clean what I could from the wall. The house smells of burnt everything. My hair smells. I don't know. Am I wrong here? Update. Okay, so some of you said I was taking it too far, and others said to leave his ass. Well, this incident sort of had me looking back at a lot of things and really got me thinking. I mean, he has a vasectomy, and I remember telling him early on in our relationship that I didn't want to rule out having kids of my own one day. And he didn't actually mention that he had a vasectomy until much later after that conversation. And at the time, I just thought that I wasn't going to have kids of my own and that I'd live with being a stepmom and that I was going to be the best stepmom there ever was. Ha! That was a funny daydream. And I didn't even see him not telling me something important like that as a red flag until now. I'll admit I was blinded by love. I just wanted to make it work. I tried to be the chill chick about it all. He wanted to buy a place halfway for us, okay, sure. But then he was hardly ever home because he was away for work so much, so I was all alone in this beautiful house. He literally isolated me from everyone I love. I miss my friends, I miss my family, and he made me hate going to work because I had to drive so far there and back. I used to love work and love what I do. I do want kids of my own. I don't want to have to tiptoe around things or be scared to say things to my husband about how he should raise his kids or discipline them. I have no power here. I can't live in a place where I'm not respected and my voice isn't heard. I'll never be able to parent these kids when my own husband tries to be their best friend. So I officially left him. We're able to get the marriage annulled. I'm staying with my mom for now. As much as I love that house, I couldn't stay there any longer. It ended up feeling like a prison. I'm back in the city, and I'm a few minutes away from work, and I see my friends almost every day. I get to spend time with my best friend and her new baby. I feel good about all of this. I've also heard from some mutual friends that my ex was demoted at work. Looks like his dismissive attitude and lack of responsibility finally caught up with him and spilled over into other aspects of his life. Not only that, but because of his demotion, he's having a hard time coming up with the money to pay child support, and his daughter still isn't speaking to him. I don't blame her. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Finally cut my toxic mom off to protect my wife and 5 kids, but she threatened to take legal actions against us for grandparents' rights. So I exposed her cruelty to the whole family. I am a 41-year-old happily married father of 5 children. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and both of us came from fractured, chaotic families. My wife's parents divorced and were both alcoholics. Her father died of liver failure, and her mother has cooled off a bit and has retired. My parents went through a vicious, violent divorce when I was a child. My father moved 10 states away to get away from the craziness, and my mother has never changed. Because of our experiences with violent and unstable families, my wife and I have worked extremely hard to be picture-perfect parents and spouses. We've done everything you can think to have a perfect life for our kids. My wife is a sports coach and I'm a scoutmaster with the BSA. Our kids are healthy, engaged, and have everything they need physically and emotionally. This has been in spite of our families, not because of them. My mother is a terrible woman. She systematically abused me throughout my whole childhood and continued to be a violent, bitter, mean, and aggressive person to me throughout my whole life. I could sit here for hours and write about the things that she's done. She used the courts to destroy the life of my father for decades. Once he was out of the house, she turned her anger at me with physical and emotional violence. When I was 16, she expelled me from the house and left me homeless. I had to go from house to house figuring out where to live and try to graduate high school. I ended up living with an older boy that was about 4 years older than me, and I had to engage in a sexual relationship with him in order to secure that housing. I was not gay, I did not want to be gay, and I had to endure something that destroyed me in order to not be sleeping on the street. When I turned 18, I was able to start working at a better job and was able to get out of that bad situation and start my life from scratch. My wife and I have scratched and clawed our way into a stable middle-class lifestyle. We both went to college at night for years and years, and we have good jobs and a house in the suburbs. Out of a sense of duty to our family, I sought to include my extended family in our lives and permitted a relationship with strict boundaries between my mother and my children. For the most part, she has been fairly stable for about 20 years. I say stable in that we could have routine contact about once per month for that time period with a minimum of disruptive behavior. She has never acknowledged her abuse to me, as she is an extremely selfish person. Everything about our past has been left unsaid. My mother, over the last 2 years, has become completely unraveled. Her second husband decided to leave her for his own health and sanity, and she has instantly reverted back to the most cruel and the most bizarre behavior imaginable. All aspects of her life have been affected. She is calling the cops, suing him in family court, alienating large part of her family from one another, all while trying to tell my children about why their grandfather is a bastard for how she feels about him. Once I saw this happening, I said, "That's it. Not again," and took some action. At the beginning of this year, I wrote a very courteous note to my mother asking her to reevaluate the way she's been behaving to me and my family. When I tell you it was neutral and courteous, I really mean it. I checked it like 5 times. She responded by calling me terrible names, ungrateful piece of shit, for example, and screaming bloody murder on the phone at me. I blocked her from my phone. Then she did the same thing to my wife. So, I informed my mother by email that I'd like to maintain distance until she works on herself in therapy or with her divorce mediator. Things lay still for about 6 months. This morning I wake up to a series of bizarre emails from my mother asserting that she wants to see my children for their birthday, which is coming soon, and that she is giving me 24 hours to provide acceptable dates for permitting visitation or to be prepared for a legal summons to family court. I'm like, WTF? This woman is the equivalent of a schoolyard bully following me around in life, tormenting me nonstop until you just want to cry. The worst part of a bully is that when you ask them to lay off you for even 5 minutes, that they just take this as a cue to keep it up even more. I took one look at this and I was like, holy shit, this woman is clearly out of her effing mind. Now, I know in the post title I said she's suing me. I work in the legal field and I know that until I've been summoned to appear that I have not been sued. So no, she's only threatening to sue me right now. Sorry for using the hyperbole, but I'm finding myself in the same bizarre, out-of-touch reality that everyone in this person's life finds themselves. This insane woman forced me to see my own father at a McDonald's when we were kids for 2 hours every 2 weeks as per the court order, while she waited outside in a running car. I was only allowed to see him in this fashion because she hated him and didn't care what this would do to her own kids. There were more than a few times when the clock would strike 8 and she would come screaming into the McDonald's, threatening to call the cops and have my dad arrested for kidnapping, while grabbing us by the arms and pulling us out of the store. This is what she's capable of doing with family court. I had a literal hyperventilating panic attack on the floor of my office this morning. I have sought to be respectful, mature, and use good decision-making this whole time. My wife and I have an extremely secure marriage, and she is in agreement with me 100% through all of this. I'm finding myself wishing that my mother would just die already and just please leave me alone. She's like this inescapable bully that will never under any circumstance leave a person alone until she's proven that she can hurt them. I don't even care what she's experienced in her life. I just need to be away from her. So that's my true off-my-chest story. I've been living with this shame and fear and lingering self-hatred for 30+ years, all while trying to be super dad and a great career man. I called a local family law practice today to get a referral. I'm going to ask them to send a demand letter to her to try and get her to back the hell off. But look at what this has come to. I have to shell money out of my own pocket to protect myself and my kids from my insane mother. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield sometimes. Ironically, the money I'm going to have to send to the lawyer for their retainer is money that I had earmarked for the kids to go to summer camp. So figure that one out. Thank you for letting me tell you my story. Just typing it out helps. Comments. Opie on if there's a legal precedent that gives her threats in his area. Opie. New York does provide an avenue for grandparents to sue for custody, although it would turn into a protracted legal fight that will cost me a lot of money and aggravation if she does. In general, the process is the punishment. I had to deal with family court and CPS, cops, etc. when I was 10 and my parents were getting divorced. If you wanted to see me literally pass out on the floor, you'd drag me back to family court. Opie on his mother having the financial means to sue for grandparents' rights. Opie. I've seen this woman use the courts to destroy my father for over 10 years. The answer is, who knows? I guess I'll just have to wait for a court summon to see what she will do. Comment 1. I'm extremely sad to read it. I suppose you know that would she sue you, this would more likely bring to her 40 years horrors being exposed in court and her being denied to stay on the same planet of your kids. So I suppose that you're here to just get it off. And yes, you don't deserve it, and definitively yes, you are paying for having been a good person. May life repay you and your mom. All my vibes are for you. Comment 2. You should have plenty of proof to get a restraining order and do not worry about her getting grandparents' rights. She would have to have a well-established relationship with the children already, which does not sound like that's the case. They don't just give grandparents visitation rights because they're grandparents. I would definitely change your number and go file a restraining order. It sounds like she is unhinged and you are concerned for your family's safety. At the very least, if they deny that, make sure you issue a letter of no trespassing so she cannot come to your home. If she violates that, then you should have enough grounds to get the restraining order. You could even use her own words against her. Tell her that she's welcome to take you to court, but till then, do not contact you for any circumstances. If she wants meditation, she can take you to court. That will not end well for her. Comment 3. Not only change the phone number but completely ghost her. Do not reply to anything she does to contact. The courts aren't going to decide with her over this. She sounds completely crazy. Update. I posted this all on Thursday when I was experiencing a serious amount of turmoil. Since then, I've calmed down a lot and also had the good judgment to talk this over with the important people in my life. First things first, I'd like to thank everyone for the words of encouragement and support that were given. There were some surprising insights from many of the posters, and I found myself agreeing with and appreciating many of the stories of support that were posted by others. I now understand that I am not the only person with a domineering, selfish, easily enraged parent. To all the people who blamed me for being a victim of my mother and somehow being at fault for all this, well, I want to use some strong language to you, but I'll just ask you to please think about how fortunate your life has been that you haven't experienced what I have experienced. So on to the update. As it turns out, only 2 states in the Union have codified grandparents' rights: California and New York, and I do live in New York. Basically, in New York, a grandparent does not have the automatic right to have access to grandchildren, but a grandparent does have automatic standing to file a petition to be heard in family court. The petition can be squashed, but they can file the petition. I do want to get back to this later. I did conference with a family law attorney on Friday, and he helped me to understand the situation and craft a strategy. He was generous enough to not require a retainer less and until I'm served with legal papers. He basically explained that the grandparent does have standing to file a petition based on a pre-existing relationship with the grandchildren, but that she would most likely not be able to overcome the desires of 2 married parents who are both exercising their judgment for the health and safety of their children. He explained that in New York, our simple desire to terminate a relationship would most likely be overcome in court. However, if we introduce some of the specific actions that she's exhibited over the last few years, familial alienation, adult humor near children, uncontrollable anger, hoarding of house cats, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, that we would very likely prevail in a court setting. He explained that the good thing is that we had already restricted contact between our children and my mother to about once per month, and that in his experience he had never seen a court order for grandparent visitation for more often than once a month for 1 hour per session. I try to be reasonable, so I said, okay, the worst case scenario is supervised status quo. I did broach the topic of a restraining order and I was quickly schooled on how that works. Despite the Reddit attorneys who all assured me that I can automatically get a restraining order, well, I hate to say that you're all completely wrong. An order of protection has to be accompanied by some facilitating act of domestic violence. Because I've only been harassed and alarmed by words, I can't be granted a restraining order, period. However, if my mother causes some disorderly acts, such as coming to my house and causing a ruckus, that could trigger an order if and only if I document it by having the police come and detailing a report. So, keep that in mind next time you recommend a restraining order. They're not easy to get. The attorney recommended that I send a private cease and desist to my mother via certified mail and email. I decided to write a 2-page brutal takedown of this woman in order to A. blow off some steam and B. document in writing my concerns and try to get ahead of her legal maneuvering. I decided to take a 2-pronged approach. 1. First, I sent this cease and desist to her on Friday at lunchtime via email and also certified mail. 2. Then, I took a page out of her playbook and publicly scorched the earth to apply social pressure to her. I emailed and texted every single member of my extended family, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, my stepfather, my father, and spoke to several of them to tell them exactly what was happening, whether they wanted to hear it or not. I sent them intimate details of my mother's abuse and my decision to cut her off for the welfare of myself and my family. My reasoning there is simple. My mother's abuse thrives in closed doors and embarrassed silence. For 30 years, I've had to hear, "Oh, that's just the way your mother is," while people just stood by and let her act in the most insane and violent ways you can imagine. My mother got angry at my stepfather last year and tried to run him over with her car, then crashed her car into the front door of his business, screaming at him and ranting and raving in public. Do you know what people did? They surely called the police or an ambulance and had her monitored for her safety, right? No, my sister quickly threw her into her car and drove her away so that she wouldn't be arrested. My stepfather was so embarrassed that he took the crashed car, drove it to a parking spot, and then paid out of pocket for the damage to the front of his business. This is what happens in families that are dealing with a crazy person. They cover it up, hoping that it will someday get better. Well, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. I sought to publicly embarrass and pressure her for a change. Anyway, by Friday afternoon my mother got the message and sent me emails telling me that I can stop attacking her and maligning her to my family. She indicated that she would abandon any legal efforts to seek visitation with my children. This was a relief, but to be fair, I was almost looking forward to having a public forum to describe her antics at court. Nevertheless, it seems like she's backing off for the moment. The fallout and damage to my extended family is most likely severe and permanent. However, my wife and I discussed this fully and have decided that this is the direction we're going in. We'll just have to have holidays by ourselves if the family can't be loyal and supportive to me. On to the last point, and I really want to drive this home. In 1991, my mother conducted an incredibly vicious divorce against my father. She literally sought to destroy him, and she did. He was completely beaten by her. One of the things that my father told me about just this weekend was that at the time, my grandparents on his side sought to have guaranteed visitation with us after the divorce. My mother actually went to court on that specific topic and specifically litigated that she was the custodial mother and had sole decision-making about who the children would be around. The court ruled at the time that in fact there was no right for a grandparent to see children, and my mother successfully was able to keep me away from my very loving and happy grandparents for years. I was only able to see them during court-mandated visitation with my own father. The law in New York changed in 2000, so the grandparents' rights came into effect too late to help me, unfortunately. I want to really drive this home. The effing balls on this woman to go to court on her own behalf and state in a court of law that she, as the custodial mother of children, has the sole and ultimate decision on who her children have relationships with, and then to 35 years later attempt to use the changes in law to assert that she has grandparents' rights to visitation despite the wishes of the both parents, was too much for me to bear. That alone made me say, no way, not happening under my watch. So that's the update. Long-winded, yes, but it makes me feel good to type this out. I'm finally able to unburden the unbearable shame and embarrassment of what happened to me to members of my family, and I won't allow myself to be ignored anymore. I'm 41, and my selfish, insane, baby boomer mother is in her mid-70s and has no power over me anymore. I'm sick and tired of bottling this up. Anyone who doesn't like it, they can go suck an egg. I deserve to have loyal and faithful people in my life. Comments. Comment 1. Isn't her case now public record? If she believes that only custodial parents should dictate a child's relationship with extended family, isn't that something a lawyer can look up and use? Opie. I have started the FOIL request at the family court where the divorce was adjudicated. However, this will likely take months and months to get the records. I may read them just to more fully understand my family's history. Comment 2. Man. I am so unbelievably glad that you stood up for yourself, and that you and your wife are united in standing up to your extended family. That's not easy to do. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, but abusers are so good at making you believe that you're the one exception. Comment 3. Exactly. And good job, OP. From my own personal experience, it can be difficult to cut a toxic, abusive person out of your life. So many people follow the same path as their parents. It makes me happy to hear that you are raising your children the complete opposite of how she raised you. In limiting context and going, you are not only protecting yourself but also your children. No one should have to endure that, and so sorry that you did, but be proud of the fact that you and your wife are ending that cycle. Comment 4. In New York, the burden of proof for a TRO is high. Why so many jump to that, thinking they give things out like that freely? You wouldn't want a system that allows that. Being made uncomfortable is not grounds for TRO, and in a dysfunctional family where abuse is chronic and lifelong but rarely enough to cause arrest, people who exhibit controlling and abusive behavior know what they can and cannot get away with legally in most cases and have enablers that hide behind their silence and shame. It is frustrating. Unless minors are witnesses to the behavior, CPS acts on this quickly, TROs are usually granted. Then parents can be faulted for failure to protect if they do not shield the children from a relative's behavior. The culture has changed in this regard from the 80s and 90s. What matters now is the future. Protect your children and go to therapy for yourself. Intergenerational trauma stops with you and you are taking steps to do that, but you also have to heal yourself, the child you were that was not heard, loved, valued, or protected by your primary caregiver/mom. It will take hard work and some time, but if you take the therapy seriously, it will heal you and help become the healthiest version of yourself and as a parent that you can be, and you will be mentally free. Go to you. Comment 5. This bats hit insane woman forced me to see my own father at a McDonald's when we were kids for 2 hours every 2 weeks as per the court order while she waited outside in a running car. I'm trying to understand how the courts only granted the father 2 hours per fortnight visitation. On what grounds? Fatigue error? Mom probably made up a lot of BS that made the dad sound abusive, uncaring, etc. Comment 6. I dated a guy who had an ex like that. Even worse, it wasn't regular visits. She'd just phone with 1 hour's notice, and if he wasn't there she'd tell the kids he didn't love them enough. Took him years and thousands to sort the court custody. Sadly, it took a toll on the relationship. Hard to be second best to ex's crazy, and we had to keep relationship secret or she'd cut him off. He had 2 and did put his kids first, but the frequent cancel dates were too much. Her fault, really. As a friend of his, though, I was pleased when it was all finalized and to see he settled with a nice GF now. Comment 7. Cases like that are why co-parenting apps are a godsend. No more lies about who agreed to do what or when. It's all documented and timestamped. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Husband's little sister sat on his lap at our dinner party. I left for the night and now he's staying with his mom. Furious at me. I am still so shaken by everything, and I am so sorry for my rambling. My husband, Jake, and I have been married for 3 years, and from the beginning, he was very close with his best friend's sister, Cindy, 18F. Well, my husband would often talk about her and tell me how he had seen her grow up throughout the years. Cindy is always very bubbly and seems very fond of Jake as well. I remember when we were dating she would ask to come along on our dates a lot. I never really said anything as I like spending time with her as well. She was like a little sister to me. When we announced our engagement, she asked my husband to better not forget her after being a married man and to still hang out with her. Well, we got married and I even made her my bridesmaid. Soon we moved to a different state and lost contact. Now Jake's best friend has come to visit and is staying with us for some time, and Cindy has come along as well. The moment she saw us, the first thing she said was how hot my husband had gotten, and she was glad he didn't look like those boring married men. Then throughout their stay, Cindy would ignore my presence and get way too close to Jake. I told Jake that it looked a bit inappropriate and asked him to tell Cindy to tone it down. But he said that Cindy is just a bit childish and is that way with everybody. Well, on their last day, we decided to host a dinner party for everybody. During the party, I was with Jake when Cindy came and told me, "Oh, I need to steal your husband for a while." Before I could say anything, she grabbed Jake's hand and took him to play games. I ignored it since it was their last day, but then throughout the dinner, she was getting way too close to Jake and would just drag him away whenever I would be around, while giggling at me. When everybody sat for dinner, I sat beside Jake, and Cindy came in last. She then said, "Oh, there is no seat," and then just went and sat on my husband's lap. Everybody was surprised, and Jake said, laughing, "Cindy, stop acting like a kid. You're not a kid anymore." Cindy started laughing, saying it was a joke, and got up and sat on the other seat while giggling at me. Yeah, I was so angry with the disrespect and with the fact that Jake was so cool with it, but I didn't want to say anything bad, so I excused myself, took my car and went out. About 1 hour later, Jake called me asking where I was. I told him I was going to my friend's house and I would come back after Cindy had left. I know what I did was terrible, but I was so angry at that time that if I had stayed there any longer, I would have probably started fighting or crying. I came the next day, and Cindy and her family had left. Jake was very pissed and said I took things too far. I started crying and told him how everything made me feel. He said it was horrible to think such things about Cindy and that she was like his sister. I told him that I did not doubt his intentions, but I was hurt by Cindy's disrespectful behavior and that he was enabling her by not saying anything. He started saying that I sounded ridiculous and couldn't even take a joke, referring to the sitting on lap incident. I said that regardless, I don't want her in my house again. To top it off, Cindy sent me a message saying that she was sorry about making me so insecure and that she would make sure to make me feel better. But I should not have left as it was pretty childish and kind of spoiled the mood. It felt so backhanded that I didn't reply to her. I just told my husband he needs to maintain a distance from Cindy. He asked if I was giving him an ultimatum. I asked if he would go as far as disregarding and disrespecting my feelings for Cindy. This really rubbed my husband the wrong way, and he said, "Since I have such disgusting thoughts in my mind and I'm giving him an ultimatum anyway, then he might as well leave because he cannot live with such an insecure person who has such disgusting thoughts about him." Then he packed a bag and left for his mother's place. I have tried apologizing numerous times, saying how sorry I am for everything. He is ignoring my texts and calls. Later, Cindy's brother texted me and called me a bunch of names to think like that about his sister, saying Jake should just leave me and that a disgusting person like me deserves to be alone. I could not stop crying after that. I don't know how to fix this. Is there a way to even come back? Was I so wrong to deserve this? I don't know anymore. More info. For those who are asking about our ages, we are both 25 years old, just months apart. Now, at the dinner party, it was me, Cindy, her brother and his girlfriend, and their cousin with his boyfriend. It wasn't a big dinner, and when Cindy sat on my husband's lap, everybody went silent. But as my husband laughed it off, they didn't say anything either. I think if everyone had seen I was not okay, things would have been awkward. I don't know what happened after I left. Maybe they said something to Cindy or not. I don't know. I was just so overwhelmed and so embarrassed with everything that I didn't want to talk about it anymore. However, now I will definitely reach out to other people who were there and ask them about what happened after I left and what they think of the situation. Update 1. Thank you all for responding, and the people who gave me good advice and personal messages. I couldn't read all the comments, but now I know my feelings are valid and Cindy crossed boundaries. Now, during the dinner, Cindy, her brother Sean, his girlfriend, and their cousin Derek, also a good friend of my husband, with his boyfriend were here. So I called Derek and asked about the situation and what happened after I left. He was sympathetic and said that after I left, at first, they thought I would come back after some time. However, things were really awkward when I didn't come back. Sean's girlfriend told Cindy that she was disrespectful for doing that. Derek and his BF also said the same thing. To this, Cindy started crying, saying they didn't have to corner her and attack her over a silly joke that she didn't know it would get so out of hand. She then left the room while crying. Jake didn't know what to say, and everybody left early the next day. Derek also said that Cindy has always had issues with boundaries, and when he introduced his BF to everybody, Cindy would get too close and would joke that she was just checking if he was really gay. They were really uncomfortable with it as well, so Derek confronted her. To which Cindy rolled her eyes and said they couldn't take a joke and eventually stopped. This all sounds so bizarre. I don't know what's going on with Cindy. Sean's girlfriend also texted me saying she was sorry about what happened. I told her how Sean's message was inappropriate, but she had no idea about the text. So I sent her a screenshot and asked her to tell Sean not to harass me again. She was very apologetic and said she would talk to him. Then my MIL called and asked what was going on. That Jake didn't tell her and only said we had an argument. I was a bit hesitant to tell her but eventually told her everything. She was furious at my husband. She said Jake and her would be coming to our house so we could all talk. So yeah, I am just waiting for them to arrive and really nervous. I don't know if what I did was right or wrong, but we will see. As for people saying my husband is some pedo or they are having an affair, I know this is furthest from the truth. I never questioned his intentions, but what hurt me was Cindy's lack of respect for me. Update 2. So my MIL came with my husband and well, the talk happened. There were a lot of things, but I will try to summarize them. Basically, Jake apologized to me first and tried to explain his POV. He said that he was angry because I left without saying anything for the whole night when he was literally trying just to diffuse the situation and tried to laugh it off because it was so awkward. He didn't know what else to do, but instead of communicating, I just left him in that situation. He hadn't seen his friends in a long time and just wanted the dinner to be peaceful. Cindy was going back anyway, and we would most likely never meet her again. B. He acknowledged Cindy was indeed overstepping boundaries, but he didn't know how to bring it up since he had literally seen her growing up and she is like a little sister to him. Also, she acts like that with everyone. He thought that it was just for a few days and he wanted no drama during their stay, so he would just brush it off. He did acknowledge he was wrong about not saying anything. See, he was already really worried and sad because I just left with no explanations. Even after I came back, I did not ask how he felt once. He was also very overwhelmed with everything and felt I was accusing him of not doing anything when he literally pushed her off as politely as possible when she tried to sit on him. He felt I was attacking his character and even gave the ultimatum, which made him so sad as he felt as if I thought that little of him. It wasn't about Cindy but about how easy it was for me to question his sincerity. He said after that dinner he was going to go extremely LC with her anyway. D. He apologized for not speaking up about Cindy's disrespect towards me and for also leaving like that. Then, after Jake said everything, MIL explained the situation to Jake from her perspective. She scolded him a lot as well. In short, she told him that as a husband, it was his responsibility to make me feel like I was his priority, and that he disappointed me the moment I had to come to him to ask to establish boundaries. She said that as a husband, it was his duty that I never would have to come to him about this in the first place. She also asked him how he would have felt had it been a guy on my lap, and he had no answer to it. She told him that what I did was an eruption of suppressed feelings and that as a husband, it was his duty to go after me and never let me leave in the first place. There were a lot of things said by her, and Jake seemed to realize and sincerely apologized for his actions. She ended by telling him that if he ever pulled such a stunt again to not expect her to take him in. Later, she took me for a walk. It was just the two of us, and there she explained some things to me as well. She said that she was sorry for everything but told me that even at her house Jake was distraught. He didn't tell her because he most likely knew he was wrong but was overwhelmed by everything as well. She said she in no way excused her son's behavior but would hope that I would forgive him. She also said that in no circumstances did I need to leave my house as it was my house and my family. She said I shouldn't be afraid to speak my mind if anything makes me uncomfortable and to talk to her if Jake does something stupid again and she will set him straight. She hoped we would work it out since she had seen our love for each other and it would be sad to see us split up due to some disrespectful brat. Her words. She said she could not have a say in our issues but suggested that we should get counseling to understand each other better. She even brought ice cream for me. I know it's a bit childish, but she said sweet things work as a charm when people are upset, and well, she was right. Later, it was awkward at night. Jake came to our room, but we didn't know what to say. After a while, we talked and both apologized to each other. However, I did say that I was angry at him for telling Sean everything and was deeply hurt by the text he sent me. He said he didn't know what I was talking about, and I showed him the texts. He said he didn't tell Sean about our fight and only told him that he was at his mom's place. He called Sean and well, it turns out Sean told Cindy and told her how she went too far at the party. Then Cindy made a huge sob story about how I was passive-aggressive with her the whole time, how I would always try to question her character and act insecure and jealous. She even went on to say that I was always like that with her even when she was a kid and that I never liked her and always tried to manipulate people into thinking I was an angel while she was a... Well, that made him angry to think about how I had been treating Cindy and he sent those texts. Jake and I were shocked by such accusations, and he tried to explain to Sean how it wasn't true. But then Jake just let it be and decided to go no contact with Cindy and extremely ELC with Sean. Jake apologized again and we just cuddled and slept, and now Cindy is out of our lives for good, and we have decided to go to counseling for better communication in the future. Let's see how everything goes in the future. But yeah, we are not getting divorced. I know a lot of you guys wanted me to show Jake this post, but he was so sad and got scolded a lot already, so I decided not to show him for now, maybe in the future. Sorry for all this rambling. Have a good day, people. Edit. I read people saying we should be NC with Sean too, and I felt that it would be best to let that friendship go as well, so I talked to my husband about it and he agreed. So he sent a text to Sean stating we could not be friends with him, and then he blocked him as well. To clarify, I have somewhat forgiven Jake for his actions, but I told him he needs to rebuild the trust one had, so I know I can rely on him in situations like that. He agreed, and we will get the couples counseling as well. Thank you all for your advice. You all made me feel less lonely. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My niece called me a slur and said her dad told her I'm like a girl because I cook and clean. When I demanded an apology, my entire family turned against me. I, 29M, and my wife, 30F, have 2 kids, 5M, 3M. My wife works a full-time office job while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. Basically, as long as I meet my deadlines, no one really cares how many hours it took or what time of day I work, outside of some Zoom meetings. My sister, 26F, let's call her Barb, and her husband, 30M. Let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter, 5F. Let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we basically decided that I'll be dropping off and picking up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't really mind, and I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well and always thought I was her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well-behaved. So anyway, most days I bring her and my kids back to our house. I make them snacks or dinner, and in the afternoon/evening, my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago, the 5-year-old kids were watching Bluey on the TV as I was preparing snacks with my 3-year-old, and I suddenly heard yelling. I rushed over to see what's up, and my son was yelling at her that my dad's not a girl, while my niece yells back, "He is! He's a slur. That's like a girl." The word is different in my language, but the meaning holds, as is the distinction between using it versus simply addressing a gay person. I'm kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV and I sat her down and began explaining that this is a very bad word and we shouldn't be calling people that, and that regardless, I'm not a girl, and because this is a bad word, she should apologize to me because we don't act mean to each other in this family, and if I hear this again, I'm going to talk to her parents and she's going to get in trouble. She said she won't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me, and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's a very bad word and she's not to use it with me or in my presence, and that she should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did because she's a really good kid. We talked some more, and I prided her about other things her parents said, and from what I gather, getting info out of a 5-year-old being obviously a difficult and unreliable process. Nick, my BIL, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day and doing childcare, that cooking is a woman's duty as is cleaning and really most of the things I do around my house, and that I'm a girl. I interpret this as not really a man because I do housework and my wife earns more money than me. I explained to her the best I could that man and woman could work from an office or from home, and that my wife or Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make them men and vice versa. But I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. I didn't immediately bring it up with my sister because I figured it would be a difficult conversation and I didn't want to have it in front of the kids, and I wanted to talk it out with my wife first as well. I did talk to my wife that evening, and she seemed really upset as well. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. I called my sister and told her what happened, and she said that it's just a word, and I'm blowing it out of proportion, and obviously Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me. He is talking trash about me behind my back to my niece and to her, and she is apparently very chill about this rather than standing up for me. She said that was how Nick was, and I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to EF off, and if that was how she felt, she could pick up her own child from daycare, and hung up. I know it was really short notice of rude, but I really felt like I was being disrespected by people I did so much for over the years and were my family. My wife said she understood and that I shouldn't back down until I at least get a proper apology. The next 2 days were a weekend and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of any messages or calls made me think she didn't take my words seriously, and this actually got me even more angry. The calls did come when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare, and I obviously didn't come. I dropped my own kids off and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty, but I was stewing for 2 days and figured letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed really appropriate and felt really good. Around noon, when she called again, I did pick up. I was gonna smugly tell her that I was ready for my apology and we would put it behind us, but I didn't get to. Instead, she went off on me about how I was irresponsible and I flaked. And she was so late for work because of me. To which I just said, I told you I wasn't gonna pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements. And she kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She kept calling and sending me texts about picking Tracy up from daycare. To which I said, I will not be, then stopped replying. When I came to pick my kids up, Tracy was expecting me to take her as well, and I didn't, which was very rough on me and her both. Like, I know it's not her fault and she's 5 and she suddenly doesn't get to go over to our place and play and have snacks. But at the same time, I didn't want to just let this thing go. I felt like I deserved an apology and still do. So, I explained that me and her mom were fighting, but I'll pick her up again when we work it out. She obviously didn't take it well because she's 5, but I apologized, took my kids and left. Well, a bit later I got a call from my mom. Barb roped her into picking up Tracy, but my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead she also pulled a "you know how Nick is." To which I replied that, the more I realize how Nick is, the less I like it, and if he thinks all this trash in general and about me specifically, I sure as hell ain't going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion, and I told her I wasn't the one doing it because all I asked for was an apology and everyone else seemed to prefer all of this trash to just giving it to me, to which she said I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me. To which I said I was done and to have fun with Tracy. That evening I got a call from Nick himself, which I was hesitant about but chose to answer on the off chance that I was actually about to get that apology. Nope. Apparently, my behavior is causing Barb great distress and we're family, and how can I do this to my own sister? I told him that since we're family, how can he talk shit about me to his kid, which I take care of daily, and he said he was only joking and it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me, and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was an a-hole and couldn't take a joke and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to EF off and that I was done with him and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom, which I didn't answer. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for me being petty, and I told her that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price of her parents being ungrateful pieces of shit, to which she just yelled at me a bunch about how she was going to lose her job and I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done and unless her next message was an apology, I will be blocking her number, and it wasn't, so now I blocked her. Past few days my mom's been picking up Tracy, and it's been really rough seeing her in daycare and explaining that grandma's going to pick her up, which she hates and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place. And it's breaking my heart, but at the same time I never got a single apology from anyone but the 5-year-old. And I feel like letting this go would just be telling my family that it's okay to ignore my boundaries. But at the same time I do love my niece and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid and none of it is her fault, so arg, what do I do? Edit. Holy shit, you guys. Post barely been up 4 hours and I am already so grateful for all your support and advice. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I considered. But now I think it might actually have merit and it makes me very worried for her. At the same time, I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that that's just how Nick is, so stop overreacting, isn't gonna fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option. She's already having a hard time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to her about it. Ideally because she sees my point of view, but I'll settle for because she's desperate. I don't know what sort of child care they'll be able to afford. They took out a large mortgage on a house they can barely afford. I will also make certain to stress upon Tracy that I love her and none of this is her fault. Thank you all. Update November 13th, 2024. Alright, so I posted this yesterday and was genuinely overwhelmed by the comments, advice and support. I'd like to thank everyone for it and feel this warrants an update. Just to clarify a few things. My dad died from a heart attack 2 years ago, which came as no surprise because he smoked a lot and lived a pretty unhealthy life, so we weren't really surprised. It wasn't his first either. He was a great grandpa and a great dad before that and right up to the end, but his death left my mom alone and she doesn't work. My mom has MS, which is basically mostly steady but slowly gets worse over time and flares up occasionally, and is made worse by stress, which my mom goes through now. A flare-up often means the level she gets back to isn't quite what it was before, so we mostly try to keep her stress-free. My dad had life insurance so her house is paid for and she had a little money, but there's also a caretaker coming over 3 times a week to clean, cook, do shopping, etc., which she can't afford, so me and my wife pay for. As I mentioned in a comment on the original post, me and my wife are doing probably better off financially than Barb and Bill. They have a fancy house and fancy cars, but they have a mortgage and loans. So, the great response I got made me think about this shit again, and I thought how I could stand my ground without giving up on Tracy altogether and figured there was no perfect solution and I had to settle on something. I took the day off work because I just needed to process and deal with this shit. One comment on the original post really got to me about how someone would feel in Tracy's place, and I just can't do it to her. Now, I know this isn't the update some of you have wanted, but I just can't. I love her like she was one of my own and my kids do as well, and it's not her fault. I unblocked my sister because obviously if I'm going to be interacting with her child, she needs to be able to reach me. I talked to my mom during the day, and she was again distraught about having to pick Tracy up, which is pretty hard on her. I told her I was willing to do it, but I'm coming over and she's going to have to hear me out, to which she agreed. I talked to her for a long time, avoiding snark and lashing out this time, and just explaining that basically how serious Nick was or how he is doesn't matter. I used that rocking the boat analogy someone linked to in comments and further stressed my point by saying that it shouldn't matter if I was justified or not in getting upset. I am her child, and if something upset me, it at least warrants giving me the benefit of the doubt before siding against me, and eventually it seemed to come through. She apologized and we hugged it out, and I think she got it. She's not a very confrontational person and generally really tries to keep the peace, and this time she went about it wrong. I'm not saying I'm not mad, but she's my mom and she apologized. I explained to her that she shouldn't be covering for me because that means I have no leg to stand on when confronting Nick and Barb, and she was receptive to it. I texted my sister that we needed to talk and I'll drop Tracy off at their place tonight, to which I got a stoic thumbs up. I picked Tracy up from daycare today, and she was overjoyed. She was actually a little possessive of me, staying by my side all afternoon instead of running off to play, which was cute but also made me feel like shit a little because that's impact of me not picking her up. I explained to the best of my ability that she's not in trouble and I'm not angry with her, but I am angry with her parents and we need to work that out, but I'll do my best to not stop picking her up anymore, which she was really happy about. I dropped her off in the evening, and once she was in bed, I sat down to talk with Barb and Nick. I told them flat out that Mom wasn't going to be covering for them anymore, and if they didn't let me finish what I had to say, I would get up and leave and they can find new arrangements for Tracy. Didn't mean it, but they don't need to know that. They weren't happy, but they were willing to listen, so that's progress, or at least the threat working. I explained that this was the situation now. I don't need them to mean their apology, but I sure as hell was going to need one. This was principle now. I have spent years taking care of their child, and if they wanted to be trash, I wasn't going to do it for free, so this was how it goes now. 1. I am no longer going to be dropping her off in the morning until further notice. There was no excuse for the way Nick acted, and it needed to have some lasting impact. 2. I was no longer going to be paying for family outings and family vacations. It was a man's job to support his family, so good luck with that. The exception is Tracy, who is always welcome. 3. If I hear any more BS being talked about me behind my back, I was going to start charging them for my service. My plan was to dangle the thing they want, childcare, restoring it, but at the same time giving some repercussions and threat of things getting hard for them again. I also laid it on pretty thick about how I am a man, so I obviously have my pride and can't have that be disrespected, even by my own family who I obviously love. Don't really consider Nick family, but figured he wouldn't figure that out. Nick was not happy about this, and my sister actually had to take him outside to talk it out without me, but eventually they did agree to it, and I got my admittedly half-hearted apology. I could probably press it further, but I didn't want to risk having to either back down or hurt Tracy again, so I took this. There were no tears and no warm hugs, but I get to walk away with what I wanted, giving them some payback without having to give up my time with Tracy. I still plan to talk to my sister alone about her relationship with Nick and about how she sees me, but I figure I should let things calm down a bit before I do. I know this isn't the resolution some, maybe most, of you wanted, but at the end of the day, I need to find a solution I can live with, and for me this is it. We'll update if anything changes. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Brother asked me for money. When I refused, he broke into my house, and my parents said I should let it go because he is family. But I decided enough is enough and called the cops. Look, I, 35M, need to get this off my chest, and it's going to be a long one. My relationship with my brother, Jake, 37M, is complicated as hell, and what just happened made everything so much worse. We're complete opposites, always have been. Back in school, I was that nerdy kid who'd spend lunch breaks in the computer lab, while Jake was out there getting suspended for putting fireworks in the school toilets. Mom and Dad kept saying he'd grow out of it, but he didn't. Here's the thing about Jake. He's got a rap sheet longer than my grocery list. I'm not even exaggerating. Last time I checked, he'd been arrested like 6 times. There's always something. Getting into fights outside bars, passing out drunk at the mall, getting caught with drugs in his car. Our family's constantly cleaning up his mess. Every other month, someone's getting a call at 3 a.m. to pick him up from the police station. And this dude actually brags about it to his friends like it's something to be proud of. Meanwhile, I'm basically the most boring person you'll ever meet, and Jake never lets me forget it. Every time we're together, he's got something to say about how I need to live a little. His favorite line is, "Life isn't worth living if you don't get into a bit of trouble once in a while." Like, dude, I'm not gonna trash my career just to prove I'm not boring. My idea of a wild night is ordering dessert after dinner or maybe staying up late playing video games with my friends. Jake thinks that's pathetic, but whatever. I work as a systems engineer dealing with satellite communications. Yeah, I know, total nerd alert, but it's actually pretty cool and I make good money doing it. The catch is I need a security clearance for all the government contract stuff we handle. They check everything about me every few years, and I mean everything. My record's so clean it squeaks. No parking tickets, no noise complaints, nothing. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and I'm not about to mess that up. Jake and I basically live in different worlds now. He's not a bad guy deep down, and I don't hate him or anything, but every time we hang out, something crazy happens. Last Christmas, he tried to start a fight with our neighbor over a parking spot. The time before that, he almost got arrested at my company picnic. It's exhausting having to be on high alert whenever he's around, so I just started avoiding him. It's easier that way. The final straw came after this stupid incident at a bar downtown. Some random guy accidentally bumped into Jake while walking past, and Jake just lost it. Started screaming in the guy's face about respect. Pushed him into a table. I had to literally drag him out of there before the cops showed up. Instead of being grateful, he was pissed at me for ruining his fun. That's when I knew I was done playing babysitter to a 37-year-old man who acts like an angry teenager. My parents are just as bad, honestly. They've been making excuses for Jake since we were kids. First, it was boys will be boys. Then he's just going through a phase. And now it's always, he just needs one more chance. They've spent thousands bailing him out and paying for lawyers. He can't keep a job because he either picks fights with customers or gets caught stealing from the register. Last month, he got fired from McDonald's for threatening his 19-year-old supervisor. Guess who had to pick him up from the police station? Me. My parents completely lost it when I finally stepped back from Jake's drama. Mom started calling me stuck up because I bought a nice house and actually have a career. Dad keeps saying I'm abandoning the family. Like somehow I'm the bad guy for not wanting to enable a grown man who acts like a criminal. Every family dinner turns into a guilt trip about how I should be doing more to help Jake. They don't get that I'm trying to protect myself. One wrong move and I could lose everything I've worked for. I tried sitting down with my parents to explain why I was stepping back. Told them straight up that Jake was headed for serious trouble. It's only a matter of time before he robs the wrong store or punches the wrong guy. And then what? But they completely shut down when I called him what he is. A criminal. That was pretty much the end of our relationship. We still text on holidays and birthdays, but that's about it. It sucks not having my parents around anymore, but I'm not going to let them make me feel bad for protecting myself. Jake's always hitting me up for cash, usually small stuff like $20 for gas or $50 for groceries. I know I probably shouldn't, but sometimes I give it to him. Maybe it's leftover guilt from growing up together, or maybe I just want him to leave me alone. Either way, it's become this weird routine between us. Then, last week, Jake shows up at my house out of nowhere. Starts talking about how he needs $2,000, like right now. When I asked what for, he got all weird about it. Kept changing the subject, wouldn't look me in the eye, just kept saying he really needed it and I was the only one who could help. Real sketchy stuff. I was actually hoping this would be different, like maybe he'd say he needed the money for some online classes or to fix up his car for Uber. If he'd shown any sign of trying to get his life together, I would have given him way more than $2,000. Hell, I'd have helped him with a whole career change if he wanted. That's all I've ever wanted. To see my brother get his together and start acting like an adult. The whole thing started feeling really sketchy. Jake couldn't give me one straight answer about what he needed $2,000 for. No way I was getting mixed up in whatever illegal stuff he was planning. With my security clearance and everything, I can't risk being connected to anything shady. So I told him flat out no. Explanation? No. Money? Simple as that. Jake completely lost it. Started going on about how I care more about my job than family. Like I'm supposed to risk my entire career just because we share DNA. I tried explaining that I actually give a damn about him and don't want him getting into more trouble. The last thing I need is my money funding his next drug deal or gambling debt or whatever other mess he's gotten himself into this time. That's when he really went off. Started screaming about how I think I'm better than him because I've got a good job. Pulled out his favorite excuse about how I was born smart and everything's been easy for me. It's the same BS he's been saying since high school whenever anyone tries to get him to straighten up. According to Jake, the universe is against him and nothing's ever his fault. I'm so tired of that born smart garbage. We went to the same schools, had the same teachers, same everything. The difference is I busted my ass studying while he was out getting drunk. Even now, I spend my weekends learning new programming languages and taking online courses to stay current in my field. Nobody handed me anything. I worked for every bit of what I have. When I pointed this out, Jake just got even madder. That's when I lost my cool, too. I was just so done with his victim mentality. Started yelling about how everything's always someone else's problem. If he gets fired, it's because his boss is a jerk. If he gets arrested, it's because the cops are out to get him. If he's broke, it's because mom and dad didn't help enough. I told him straight up that his life was a mess because he refuses to take responsibility for anything. Maybe I shouldn't have gone off like that, but I was just so frustrated. The look on Jake's face scared me for a second. His hands were balled into fists, and I honestly thought he was about to take a swing at me. Instead, he just stormed out and slammed my door. I figured he'd cool off after a few days like usual, then show up again next time he needed money or a ride somewhere. That's how it always went with Jake. But something was different this time. A few days later, I went for a quick bike ride to the store around 9 p.m. Just needed to grab some stuff for dinner and get some exercise. I wasn't even gone an hour. When I got back, something just felt wrong. You know that feeling when something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it? Then it hit me, my living room lights were on. I'm super careful about stuff like that, always double-check everything before leaving. I specifically remembered turning them off before going out. My stomach dropped as I stood there in my own house, realizing someone had been inside while I was gone. At first glance, nothing major seemed stolen. My TV and PS5 were still sitting there in the living room. All my other expensive stuff looked untouched too. For a minute, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid about the lights. Then I went to check my bedroom, and that's when I knew for sure someone had been in here. My desk drawers were a mess. Most people probably wouldn't notice, but I'm super OCD about keeping everything organized. Someone had definitely gone through all my stuff. Papers were shuffled around, desk organizers were moved, and the drawers weren't even closed properly. The more I looked around, the more obvious it became that someone had searched my entire bedroom. I was freaking out pretty bad at this point. Some stranger had just walked into my house and gone through my personal stuff. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but then remembered something that might help. My Tesla was parked in the driveway all night with Sentry mode on. I'd been meaning to install security cameras in the house but kept putting it off. Maybe my car caught something. Holy, did it ever. I pulled the flash drive from my car and checked the footage on my computer. The camera caught everything. This guy walking up my driveway, trying to open my car door like an idiot, and then heading toward my house. Best part? He hadn't pulled his mask down yet when he checked my car. It was like watching one of those dumb criminal videos, except this one starred my own brother. Jake's face was clear as day on my screen. You know your life's messed up when you catch your brother breaking into your house. And you're not even shocked, just disappointed. Like watching a train wreck you saw coming miles away. On paper, it's simple. Someone breaks into your house, you call the cops. But this wasn't some random burglar, it was Jake. The same guy who used to stick up for me when kids picked on me in middle school. But he also just violated my home, the one place I'm supposed to feel safe. I sat there for a long time, staring at that video, trying to figure out what to do. I decided to check what was missing first. Walked through the whole house, making a list. He didn't take any of the obvious stuff like my TV or PlayStation. Instead, he grabbed whatever cash he could find and some smaller, valuable things. The real kick in the teeth was what he chose to steal. He took 2 of my expensive watches and my favorite custom mechanical keyboard. The watches hurt, but the keyboard really pissed me off. I build these things myself, spend weeks picking out the perfect switches, keycaps, everything. This particular one cost me $500 in parts alone, not counting all the time I put into it. It's basically art to me, and Jake probably just grabbed it thinking he could pawn it for quick cash. I figured I'd try talking to him before going nuclear with the police. Maybe there was still a chance to handle this like adults. I called him up, probably sounding more angry than I should have. But come on, my own brother just robbed me. The conversation started with me asking, "Did you break into my house, you piece of crap?" Jake played dumb right away. "What are you talking about?" Like I was some idiot who wouldn't have proof. Classic Jake move. Deny everything until you can't anymore. I've watched him pull this same routine with our parents since we were kids. That's when I told him about having him on video trying to break into my Tesla before he hit the house. The line went quiet for a minute. I could practically hear him trying to figure out if I was bluffing. Then he must have remembered my car's cameras, because he finally gave up the act. Want to hear his genius explanation for breaking into my house? Because I wouldn't just give him the $2,000 when he asked for it earlier. That's it. That was his entire justification for burglarizing his own brother's home. Like somehow not giving him money made it okay for him to rob me. I told him he'd reached a new level of stupid, even for him. But Jake just started screaming about how this was all my fault. According to his twisted logic, I forced him to break in by not handing over my money like a good brother should. He actually tried to make me feel guilty about getting robbed by my own brother. The conversation just kept going in circles. Jake wouldn't accept that breaking into someone's house is wrong, even if that someone is your brother who wouldn't give you money. He kept twisting everything around, trying to make me the bad guy. After about 20 minutes of this nonsense, I'd had enough. Told him straight up, "Either bring back my stuff by tomorrow morning or I'm calling the police." You know what this idiot did? He laughed. Actually laughed. Said there's no way I'd call the cops over just a few things, because we're family. When I repeated that he had until morning, he just made this dismissive noise and hung up on me. The whole conversation just showed how little he respects me or my boundaries. So now I'm sitting here at 1 a.m., trying to figure out what to do. My own brother broke into my house, stole my stuff, and then had the nerve to blame me for it. I don't even feel comfortable sleeping tonight. Keeps hitting me that he could just come back whenever he wants. But if I call the police, it'll destroy what's left of our family. Jake's got priors, so he'd probably do serious time. Plus, my parents would never forgive me. They'd probably take his side, like they always do. Update 1. So, I finally made my decision. Not gonna lie, it really hurts, but I know I did the right thing. I tried everything possible to handle this without getting the police involved, but my family didn't leave me much choice. Right after everything went down that night, I called my parents. Looking back now, I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought they'd finally see how far Jake had gone this time, and they'd realize their precious boy had crossed a serious line by breaking into his own brother's house. Nope. They jumped straight to defending him just like they always do. Dad started in with his usual family loyalty speech. "We need to look out for each other," he said, like I was the one who did something wrong. According to him, I should have just handed over the $2,000 when Jake asked for it. He actually tried to justify the break-in, saying Jake must have been desperate and had no other choice. Like being desperate makes burglary okay. Mom wasn't any better. She tried to minimize what happened, saying Jake only took a few small things, so I should just let it go. When I explained that he stole expensive watches and my custom keyboard that I spent months building, she came up with an even crazier idea. I should give Jake the $2,000 and he'd return my stuff. That's right. My own mother suggested I should pay ransom to my brother for my own belongings. When I asked Mom if she was seriously suggesting I pay ransom to my own brother for stuff he stole from me, she just started mumbling about family sticking together. Couldn't even give me a straight answer because I think even she knew how ridiculous it sounded. The more we talked, the more it became clear that my parents were completely useless in the situation. They'd already decided I was the bad guy for not giving Jake money whenever he demanded it. According to them, getting robbed by my own brother was somehow less important than keeping the peace in the family. They couldn't understand why I was upset about being burglarized. Finally, I'd had enough of their enabling BS. Told them straight up that if they couldn't get Jake to return my stuff by morning, I was calling the police. No more threats, no more discussions, just facts. Either my stuff comes back or I'm pressing charges. That's when they really lost it. Dad started shouting about how I was heartless, saying I'd destroy Jake's life over just a few things. Like I was the one who broke into someone's house and stole their stuff. I just told him Jake had already wrecked his own life with his choices, and I wasn't going to let him drag me down with him. Then I hung up because I couldn't take any more of their guilt trips. Next morning came and nothing had changed. No text, no call, no returned items. I decided to give Jake one final chance and called him. You know what this idiot did? He laughed. Actually laughed and said, "You won't call the police." That's when everything clicked in place. Jake wasn't worried about getting caught on camera or anything, because he didn't think I had it in me to actually do anything about it. He was counting on me being the same pushover who used to cover for him when we were kids, who'd pick him up at 3 a.m. from whatever bar he got kicked out of, who'd always clean up his messes. In his mind, I was still that guy who'd do anything to keep the peace. That's the moment I knew I had to call the cops. Jake was 37 years old, still acting like a teenager who could do whatever he wanted without consequences. If I let this slide, I'd be stuck bailing him out and making excuses for him until one of us died. Nothing was ever going to change unless someone finally stood up to him. So I picked up the phone and did it. Called the police, reported the break-in. They came over pretty quick. I showed them everything. The damaged window, the Tesla footage of him trying my car door before breaking in. All of it. The officers said it was an open and shut case. Clear evidence of breaking and entering plus theft. They took my statement and said they'd move forward with arresting Jake. Watching the police write up their report, I had mixed feelings. I felt guilty about turning in my own brother, but there was also this weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in his life, Jake was actually going to face real consequences for his actions. I tried giving him an out, tried handling it within the family, but he just laughed it off. Later that evening, all hell broke loose. Jake had called our parents from jail after getting arrested. Dad completely lost it on the phone, screaming about how I was destroying the family and ruining Jake's precious life. Mom was just sobbing in the background, like I was the one who'd committed a crime. I just told Dad straight up that I wasn't the one who ruined Jake's life. He'd done that himself, with plenty of help from them enabling his behavior for 37 years. Then I hung up, because what else was there to say? They'd made their choice a long time ago, picking Jake's side no matter what he did. Turns out Dad was right about one thing. The courts hammered Jake hard. He already had a record, and the evidence against him was rock solid. I had to testify at his trial and submit the Tesla footage. They charged him with breaking and entering plus felony theft because of how much the stolen stuff was worth. Really different from all those times Mom and Dad had bailed him out of trouble. The charges were serious enough that he was looking at real prison time. Instead of letting him use a public defender, my parents emptied their retirement savings to hire some lawyer. I tried telling them they were wasting their money. The evidence was clear as day. But they wouldn't listen, just like they hadn't listened for the past 37 years. The whole trial was a nightmare. My parents spent every day telling anyone who'd listen what a terrible person I was for, throwing my brother's life away. After weeks of hearing this BS, I finally snapped. Told them they were the ones who ruined Jake's life by being garbage parents who never taught him about consequences. That they failed both their kids. Jake by enabling him and me by expecting me to clean up their mess. Mom started crying when I said they were responsible for Jake ending up in prison. Harsh maybe, but I wasn't wrong. They had one last chance to step up as parents. They could have told Jake he'd gone too far this time. Could have made him return my stuff and get help. Instead, they defended him breaking into my house and stealing from me. Well, turns out the judge wasn't as understanding as they were. I haven't visited Jake in prison. What's the point? According to our parents, he says this is all my fault. Maybe prison will teach him something about taking responsibility for his actions, but I'm not holding my breath. At least with him locked up, I don't have to worry about him showing up at my house anymore. My parents have completely cut contact with me. Honestly, good riddance. Yeah, it sucks that this is how things ended up, but I'm done feeling guilty about it. I spent years trying to help Jake while protecting myself, and all it got me was robbed and blamed. Sometimes you have to let toxic family members face the consequences of their actions, even when it hurts. I'm not responsible for fixing my brother's life, and I'm definitely not responsible for my parents' failures. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Mother put me up for adoption after my dad passed away, and she had an affair with my uncle. After years of no contact, she found me on social media, pretending to want to reconnect. I am a 17-year-old female, and I was recently contacted by my mother after 10 years of no contact. She put me up for adoption when I was 7 years old, and thankfully, I was able to find a family willing to take me in. For the sake of clarity, while I'm narrating what happened, I'm going to be referring to my biological mother as Julia and my adoptive parents as Mom and Dad. Julia had me with my biological father when she was probably around 20 years old, and she had to drop out of college because of me. My biological father completed his education, and they got married right after he graduated. When I was around 3 years old, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and he passed away shortly after I turned 7. I guess the process for giving up my custody had already started long before my biological father passed away because my mother gave me away, and I moved in with my new family literally just one day after my dad passed away. I remember it as clearly as yesterday, even today, in spite of the fact that 10 years have passed since then, just because I was so upset and confused about what was going on. I remember being told by several people that I would be just fine, that my father was in a better place and stuff. But all I wanted to do was see how he was doing. He had been pretty sick, but he was always there whenever I wanted to see him. However, I wasn't allowed to even say goodbye to him after he passed away. I barely had time to register and process these things when my new family showed up the day after my dad's demise, and my mom told me that these people were going to take care of me for a couple of days. But days turned into weeks, then into months, and eventually years. I kept waiting for my mother to reach out to me, and I remember crying a lot about this initially because I thought that my mother and my family had abandoned me. A few weeks after my mom and dad took me in, my biological grandparents came to see me, and they have been in touch with me since then. Back then, I was too young to be told the truth, but when I was around 14, they could not evade my questions anymore. I just really wanted to know what had happened with my birth mother because I was well aware of the fact that I was adopted. I just wanted to know why all of this had happened since I distinctly remember getting along well with my birth parents when I was little. I found out the truth from my grandparents and my mom and dad eventually. Apparently, after my biological father's diagnosis with leukemia, my mother was devastated, but instead of being there for him, she started an affair with my uncle. That was horrifying in itself, but nobody even knew about it until 6 months before my dad's demise. Since his health had started worsening considerably at that point, My uncle and Julia did not think there was any point in hiding their affair anymore because she knew that she wanted to be with him as soon as my father was out of the picture. She was getting together with him. Julia and my uncle told their parents about it, and my grandparents were obviously disgusted with what was going on. But for my sick dad's sake, they kept their mouths shut about it. I was too young to understand, and they did not want my father finding out about any of this because he was already going through a lot as it was. Around the same time that they came clean about the affair to my grandparents, my uncle and Julia also announced that they were not willing to raise me and were considering putting me up for adoption. There was a lot of hue and cry about it, but Julia was pretty firm about what she wanted. Apparently, she said that she had been much too young when she had me, and she didn't even want to be a mother. She did not feel ready at the time, and it was only because of her parents' insistence that she had me and got married to my father. Had her parents not pressured her, she probably wouldn't have done either of those things, and her life would have been very different. So, now that my father was going to be out of the picture, she did not want me either, and she was going to put me up for adoption. It was obvious that they could not send me away as long as my father was alive, so they waited until he passed away, and after that, they allowed my mom and dad to finally take me in. Even my adoptive parents were very shocked by my situation, but they really just wanted to adopt a child and complete their family since they had been struggling to conceive for a second time after their first pregnancy, and it was too risky for my mom anyway. I know that my parents probably wanted to adopt a much younger kid, but they told me that they hadn't heard about me from any adoption agency. It was actually one of my mom's cousins who told her about my situation since she used to be friends with Julia back then. As soon as they heard about me, they knew that they had to get me out. They didn't even care about my age and spoke to my mother in person without any agencies involved. My mother agreed to let them adopt me because even she was struggling to find someone who was willing to adopt a 7-year-old kid through the agency. They spoke to Julia 4 months before my dad passed away, and a couple of weeks before his death. Everything had been finalized. Even my mom and dad had believed that after my father passed away, I would probably be staying with Julia for a couple of days at least, but she sent me away literally the next day. After I found out about the truth of the situation, I was really glad that Julia had decided to put me up for adoption, and I had been lucky enough to find such wonderful parents because people mostly go for younger kids when they are adopting. I found a really wonderful family. I love my mom and dad and my older brother, and I couldn't be happier. I also have literally 4 sets of grandparents, so you can imagine how spoiled I've been, right? For my childhood, nobody kept in touch with my uncle or Julia after my dad passed away, and they were not even there for his funeral, which had been organized by my grandparents. I was there because it was a very somber situation, and I was already going through a very confusing phase, so they thought it would be better for me to settle into my new life. After finding out the truth about why I've been put up for adoption and why Julia did not remain a part of my life, I had thought that I would feel unwanted or at least a little upset about it, but I mostly just felt relieved that I did not end up spending life with my biological mother and found my way to people who actually wanted me. I'm 17 now, starting college in a couple of months, and I barely even think about Julia or my uncle or what they have been up to. But for the past couple of days, I haven't been able to stop thinking about them because she reached out to me on Instagram to ask me if I would be willing to meet with her and mend things. I have a public account, and it's obviously not difficult to find me, but I couldn't understand why she was reaching out to me after so many years. So, before I agreed to anything, I decided to ask her why she wanted to mend things with me all of a sudden. Then she sent me a long and heartfelt message about how so much time had passed. But even now she regretted her decision to give me up and prioritize her life with my uncle instead of her commitment as a mother. She said that she knew it was not her place to demand that I come back to her as her daughter, but she at least wanted me to know that she was not all wrong here, and the only mistake that she had made was that she had committed to a lot of things when she was too young to understand the repercussions of it. There was a lot of pressure on her, and that's why she had made a lot of bad decisions, but she never regretted having me, regardless of what my family might have told me. She was just not ready to be a mother, and she wanted to make things right with me. After thinking about it, I decided to say yes because I was just curious. I did not tell my parents or my grandparents about it. I just went ahead and met her. Only after I met her did I realize that she was not asking me to meet her only because she wanted to make things right with me. She needed my help. I should have realized it earlier, but unfortunately, I have a tendency to try and see the good in everyone, even someone like Julia. We met for lunch 2 days ago, and initially, she seemed very warm and cordial with me. She tried to explain her side of the story, telling me that her parents insisted that she had to marry my father, drop out of college, and take care of me and stuff like that, and she just wasn't ready for any of it, but she had to do it because her parents insisted on it. She later started feeling very suffocated in her marriage, and the news of her husband's diagnosis was the last straw for her, which is why she was driven to have an affair. She did not regret it because she believed that my uncle was the love of her life, and she was glad to find him because she has been happily married to him for the past 8 years. While talking about my uncle, she started crying and told me that right now her marriage was in trouble, and that was part of the reason why she had come to me. She said that she needed my help in reconciling with her parents, and not just them, but also my father's parents. After she gave me away for adoption without even telling them, they had cut her off for the last 10 years and had nothing to do with my uncle or her. Both of them had been fine with it in the past, but for some reason, my uncle had recently started fighting with Julia a lot because he wanted to reconcile with his parents, and he knew for a fact that they would never accept him back in their lives after everything that had happened. For some reason, he was blaming Julia for it because he believed that if she hadn't been so hasty in giving me up to my adopted parents and had waited for a bit, then things wouldn't have gone so sour between all of them. So, now the only solution that she could think of was to get me to talk to my grandparents and convince them to reconcile with my uncle and her, and maybe then she could save her marriage from falling apart because she and my uncle had been fighting a lot over the past couple of weeks, and she couldn't think of any other way to deal with the situation apart from this. Honestly, there's nothing that I regret more in my life than having gone to meet that woman because clearly she was not there to genuinely apologize to me, to offer an explanation to me, or even to make amends like she claimed. She was only there because her marriage was in trouble, and she thought that I could help her out. I don't think I would want to do that because she does not deserve my help after how selfish she has been. After hearing her out, I told her that her crocodile tears were not going to work on me, and I was about to leave, but she said that if I had been in her place, I would have understood her situation better. She said that she had been forced to become a mother when she wasn't even ready to do it mentally, and in spite of that, she had tried her best to be a good mother to me. If I couldn't even see that because I was so brainwashed by my family, then that just meant I was no different from the rest of them. That just really ticked me off because so far she had only been a mother to me for 6 or 7 years, and even then she had all the help in the world. I was pretty confident that she had not been told to drop out of college by my grandparents. That was her personal choice. They had told me several times that my mother had chosen to give birth to me. They had not insisted on anything but had only advised her to have me and then see where it goes. She was the one who misconstrued it as pressure from them, and if it came down to choosing whom to trust between those two people, I would obviously pick my grandparents. So, I told her that she could sell her baloney somewhere where people would be stupid enough to buy it since I was not. I told her I did not believe a word of what she was saying, even though I'd been willing to give her a chance to be honest and make amends with me, like she said she wanted to, but she had cheapened her apology by trying to get me to fix her relationship without even trying to do it herself first. I told her that I was not obliged to do anything for her since we did not have any relationship. She might have given birth to me, but it was my mom who had raised me, not her. Then I walked out of the restaurant and went back home. After that, once I got back home, I realized that she had texted me, and it was a voice note of her crying. I could tell that she was still inside the restaurant because I could hear the background noise, and that's why I felt a bit guilty because I'm pretty sure you have to be really devastated to start crying like that in a public space. She was crying and saying that it was really horrible of me to say that we did not have any relation because no matter what had happened, she was still my biological mother and I was her flesh and blood, and regardless of everything, she still considered me her daughter. But I don't know what to tell her. I really just don't consider her my mother anymore, and I don't really want to feel bad about it because I don't think it's necessary. She hasn't been my mother for the past 10 years. I just feel messy and conflicted because of the way she was crying on the phone, and even now I haven't been able to bring myself to block her. I don't think of her as my mother, but she's still a human being who had a connection with me. Edit. Hi, so I thought it was very clear in my post that I haven't told my family about it. I don't think they would be on board with my decision to go meet Julia, and that's why I did not tell them before I made my decision. I know I owe this to them, and I'm definitely going to tell them, but for now I just wanted this to be something that I made a call on by myself. Besides, I knew that if I had told them about it, they never would have let me meet her because all of them hated her, and rightfully so. I know that for a fact. I guess I just wanted some closure, and that's why I went to meet her in the first place. I didn't know what I was expecting. I knew that she was going to apologize, and I just wanted to talk to her one last time. I guess it's just that her reaching out to me brought up a lot of mixed emotions, and I guess I wasn't thinking straight. But whatever it is, I did go to meet her, and it's done now, and I don't think I would change my decision if I could go back in the past and do it. I needed some closure, and I got it, and I don't regret what I did. Sometimes you just have to forget about everybody else and do what you think is right. Even if it's a mistake, it's going to be your mistake, and that's what I believe. Update 1. I finally told my family that I had gone to visit Julia, and just as I had expected, they were not happy about it in the slightest. I met her last week, and I blocked her a couple of days back after she kept relentlessly bombarding me with texts and phone calls, demanding that I speak to her again and give her a chance to explain herself. I didn't know what she was going to say to me, but I didn't even want to find out anymore. I met her once and got my closure, but that's all that I needed from her, and it's not like she genuinely wanted to speak to me and make things right. She just needed my help, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why she's even contacting me after the fight that we had at the restaurant anyway. I didn't want to speak to her again, and I knew that it was about time that I told my family about our meeting as well, so I sat them all down today, my parents and all my grandparents, and I explained everything to them. My parents were obviously upset that I hadn't discussed this with them, and I had just taken off without telling them who I was meeting, but they still seemed to understand. It was my grandparents who were really upset with me. They scolded me a lot, and I heard them out patiently because I deserved it. I should have spoken to them first. Mostly, they were just worried that my mother would have tried to brainwash me and tried to make them look like the villains since they knew her well enough to expect it. After they were done, I told them that the only reason I had met her was because I needed some closure, and I did not expect everyone to understand immediately why I had that thought process, but it was something that I needed to do, and I did it. The only thing that I was sorry about was that I did it behind their backs. But I promised them that I would never be dishonest with them ever again, and that seemed to pacify everyone. Then we started discussing the reason why Julia had called me there, and the things that she had said about my uncle wanting to reconcile with his parents and stuff. The one thing that all of us could agree on was the fact that there was definitely more to the situation than we were being led on. If she was trying to manipulate me into getting back into the family, it meant that they were probably in trouble and needed some sort of help. Since Julia had said that her marriage was in trouble, and she had definitely seemed very distressed when she was on the phone and even when she met me, my grandparents deduced that she was probably being truthful about my uncle being pissed at her. Now, whatever the truth is, we're not going to interfere because it's not our place to say anything. My grandparents were very clear about it. They said that they had stopped considering my uncle and Julia their family the day that they announced they were together while my father was still sick. The last straw was when my mother just gave me away without even talking to them or giving them time to explain things to me. They just got lucky that my adoptive parents were kind enough to continue to allow them to be a part of my life. So, long story short, I have now blocked Julia. No matter what happens after this, I'm not going to be speaking to her again. I know that she's quite desperate to talk to me since the last few messages that she sent me were begging me to talk to her and telling me that her marriage was falling apart and so was her life, and she desperately needed me right now. I felt really guilty ignoring all of that, but honestly, what does she even expect me to do? Even if I wanted to, I really don't think that I would be able to get my grandparents to speak to her or my uncle. If I was in their place, I wouldn't want to speak to them either, so it's completely fair for me not to want to interact with her anymore. I know that she can just make more accounts and keep trying to get to me, but it's not going to work. So I have decided that if she tries to reach out to me again, then I'm going to tell her that I'm not interested, and if she bothers me, then I'm going to report her. I did overhear my grandparents discuss potential reasons as to why my uncle would want to contact them again after so many years, and they had been speculating that maybe they were having financial trouble since nobody from our family has been in touch with them. We don't really know what they've been doing. We know for a fact that they are still living here in the same city, but we don't know what they do for a living. Julia used to be a stay-at-home mom when I was living with her, but now I don't know. But one thing is for sure, if my grandparents are right and Julia and my uncle are actually trying to reconcile with my grandparents because they are in financial trouble, I will know for a fact that they don't even deserve the bare minimum respect that they receive from other people because it is just disgusting human behavior. Reaching out to your daughter who you haven't spoken to in a decade so she can fix the situation with your parents just because you need money? That's literally one of the cheapest things I can imagine people doing. And yeah, I really hope that she gets her comeuppance if that's actually the case here. Update 2. Hey, so she reached out to me once again today. I had blocked her everywhere about 10 days ago, and after a week passed without any sign of her reaching out to me again, I thought that she had given up. But somehow she was able to find out where I go to school, and I guess that's why we shouldn't put out our personal information on public platforms. It was a lesson learned the hard way. Anyway, when I started walking back home from school today, she showed up on my way out of absolutely nowhere, and I was pretty taken aback. It happened about a block away from school, and I don't live very far from my school, so I usually just walk home, but she showed up in her car and started yelling at me to get in. I told her I was not going to get into her car because I did not trust her, and I said that if she insisted or tried to create drama, then I would start screaming right there in the middle of the street and then she would be done for. She just told me she was not here to fight with me or bother me. She just wanted to talk to me, and she did not even care if I was not going to help her to reconcile with her parents. She just wanted to speak to me and reconcile with me at the very least. She claimed that everything had gone wrong the last time that we met, and she just wanted to make up for everything. She knew that I was going to misconstrue everything that she was saying as fake and think that she was putting up an act, but she wanted to tell me that that was not the case, that she really would love to make things right with me. I could literally hear how desperate she was in her voice, and I don't know why. I know I should have felt bad for her, but I just felt annoyed. So I told her to leave me alone. I did not want anything to do with her, and that's when her true colors started showing again. I'm actually pretty proud of myself for not falling for her act the first time around, since she was pretty good at pretending that she was sorry and she really wanted to make things right with me. Anyway, as soon as I told her to leave me alone, I guess I had a bit of a tone, and she completely freaked out at me because of it. She started cursing at me and said that she was trying really hard to talk to me politely, but if I was going to be like this, then she was going to make sure that she screwed up my life. The woman literally started threatening me, saying I had better watch my back and stuff now, but I just found it very amusing because what was she even going to do anyway? I just continued to walk while she cursed at me, and eventually she just drove off after flipping me off. I was so relieved once I got back home. I told my parents about it, and once again everyone gathered around to discuss what was going to be done. Since she has threatened me, we have grounds for a restraining order, so we are guessing that we are probably going to go that way, and I don't have an issue with it. I would actually prefer that so that she cannot bother me again and again. Update 3. So, a couple of days ago, my parents filed for a restraining order against Julia, and after she was served, that's when my uncle decided to reach out to his parents finally, and just like they had predicted, it was obviously because of money. They had been running a confectionery together for the past couple of years, but it has not been doing well for the last few years, so they were in desperate need of money. They knew that if they reached out to their parents directly, it would not work, and that's why they came up with this whole act. But unfortunately, Julia lost patience with me, and it screwed everything up for them. So, who knows, they might even get divorced because of this, and I'll be the happiest person if that happens. My uncle is still trying to suck up to his parents, trying to get them to give him some money and keep saying that he has nothing to do with the way Julia behaved with me. But as their only son, he deserves to get some help from them. Julia, on the other hand, is taking a very strange approach and has decided to be as nasty as she possibly can to her parents and me, and has been talking crap about us online without any fear of the consequences. All that's doing is making our case stronger, so I hope she continues. We are pretty positive that we are going to be able to get the restraining order against her because it's pretty obvious that she is unhinged now. I don't even know why she's fighting it because the other day she made it pretty clear that she wants nothing to do with me anyway. It doesn't matter in the first place because I'm going to be leaving for college in the fall, and I don't think it's going to be likely for her to show up there since she's struggling with money. Regardless of whatever happens, my parents and my family are always going to be by my side, so I don't really think that I have anything to worry about. Now on to the next story. Story 10. I lost my patience with my stepson for calling me a gold digger for marrying his father, who was living off of my dime, and not correcting his son after he destroyed my car. For context, my husband Thomas and I have been together for 6 years, married for 2. He also has a 19-year-old son from his previous marriage, but unfortunately, his first wife passed away from an unexpected aneurysm about 5 years before he met me. His son, Rob, was 9 years old at the time and he took it really hard. He was a very troubled kid, and as he grew up, things only got worse. By the time I was introduced to him, he was around 13 or 14, and getting to know him was not a pleasant experience because he made it very clear to me right from the beginning that I would never be able to take the place of his mother, something that I was not even interested in doing, and that he would never accept me as part of the family. I tried to be his friend, but the kid was just determined to make sure that I gave up on the relationship and I left. I had spoken to Thomas about it as well and suggested that he send Rob to therapy so he could deal with his emotions, and he told me that they had tried everything, but he just didn't seem to want to get better. After his last wife had passed away, Thomas had not even thought about dating people for a really long time, but when he had met me, he changed his mind. I was pretty much one of the first women he got serious about after his wife passed away. He had gone out on a couple of dates that year, but none of them got a second date out of him apart from me, and he had told me about it right in the beginning. Thomas has always been very upfront and honest about everything with me, and he had also told me that Rob was not going to be particularly welcoming because he is not over his mother's passing, and that's why he wanted to take it slow with me before he introduced me to the family. So, we were actually together for 1 year before he finally brought me home, and even then, Rob was very unkind to me for the first few years. All he could do was just throw temper tantrums and be rude to me, and while initially I would try to understand and be kind to him, eventually I just started ignoring him because it was not worth my energy to even fight him. I had also told Thomas repeatedly to do something about his son's behavior, and Thomas would occasionally reprimand Rob, but it would be pointless because he would just go back to his usual behavior after that. And I love Thomas, truly and genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, so I knew that no matter what, I wanted to make it work with him. This is why I stayed with him for almost 6 years in spite of him constantly forgiving his son. But what happened recently was the last straw for me. 3 years back, around the time that Thomas had proposed to me and I had said yes, he had also started a new business. Unfortunately, it didn't take off, and for the past couple of years, he has been trying to make it work, but it just hasn't been going well for him financially. I let him try his luck with his business for almost 3 years because it was his passion project, but when it still didn't take off, I tried to tell him that maybe it was time to move on to better things or go back to his job because this was clearly not going well for him. I had started telling him to give up on his business and do something else recently, just a few months ago, since for the past 3 years we've been living off of my money for the most part. I've been getting worried because I can't afford to support our family on just my income since that will leave very little for me in the future when I want to retire. So, I had been trying to gently nudge Thomas in the right direction, but he was being very stubborn and he kept telling me that he just needed some more time to work on his business model and would keep coming up with excuses not to give up. I really wanted to be understanding, but it was impossible for me to keep supporting him, knowing that this was not working. So, recently we had been fighting a lot over this, and I guess at some point his son had overheard what we were talking about, and he came to the conclusion that I was a gold digger for telling Thomas to sell off his business to any interested buyers and go back to his job so we could make more money. I found it very insulting because the one thing that I'm definitely not is a gold digger. I've always been independent, and I couldn't stand the insinuation that I had been relying on my husband for money when it had actually been the other way around. I had wanted to correct Rob when he started calling me a gold digger because it had come up a few weeks ago when I had told him to do some chores and he had told me that he was not going to take orders from a gold digger with no self-respect or dignity. And when I had asked him what he meant by that because I was obviously appalled, he had explained his thought process to me. But before I could correct him, Thomas intervened and broke up the fight, and then he put me aside and told me not to tell his son anything because Rob had no idea that we had been living off of my money for so long, and he wanted to preserve his image in front of his son because it would be very shameful for him to admit that he was struggling with money as a father. It would be humiliating for him to show his son how he had fallen, and Thomas pretty much begged me not to tell him the truth. So I obliged, but I had to pay the price for it because after that day things started getting more difficult for me since now that Rob believed that I was a gold digger, he kept using that against me, and it was very tempting for me to tell him the truth, but I had to think of Thomas and stayed silent for his sake. Rob had come back home for his winter break, and I knew that he would be gone in a couple of weeks, so I only had to tolerate him for a few weeks, and since I had already put up with him and his terrible behavior for so many years, I didn't think that it would be much difficult. But I guess this time Rob was planning on going out of his way to make things much more difficult for me, and so a few days ago, he decided to take out my car without my permission and crashed it right before I was about to head out for a very important meeting that I had been talking about for days. I usually leave for work around 9 o'clock in the morning, But that day I had a meeting with a very important client and was planning on leaving much earlier since I didn't want to be late, and I'm really thankful that I planned ahead. I was ready to go out quite early, but Rob had been preparing so much earlier, and when I came out to check out my car, I saw that there was a huge dent on the hood and the sides had been scraped like nobody's business. I was obviously devastated, and I was even more upset by the fact that Rob was standing beside the car with the keys in his hand, a proud smile on his face, like he thought that he had done something great. Neither my husband nor I had left for work at that time, and when I saw him and what he had done to the car, I completely lost my mind and started freaking out at him. I'm usually not a violent person, but that day I just lost control, and I ended up slapping Rob in the face, but it's not like I regret it. He tried to shove me, but by then Thomas had come out of the house and had put 2 and 2 together, so he had been able to hold Rob back before he could do anything. I was sobbing because obviously I couldn't take that car to the meeting now, and I would have to take a cab, which wasn't all that bad. But my car had been one of the first purchases that I had made with my hard-earned money, and it was quite significant to me. Also, taking a cab to a meeting that was so important for my career with such a high-profile client, it would just look a little odd, and I was really upset because of what had just happened, like any other person would have been. However, Rob did not seem to be regretting anything, and instead he was actually screaming at me while his father was trying to hold him back and telling me that this ought to show me my place. He believed that I had way too much arrogance for somebody who was relying on my husband to fund my lifestyle, and he found it laughable that I had been talking about this important meeting for days, even though I knew that at the end of the day I was going to be living off of my husband's money, and he wanted to make me realize how pretentious and phony I was and that he could see right through me. Then he started yelling at me, saying that this was my lesson for trying to force his father into selling his business just so that I could have more money for myself, and then he kicked my car once again, called me a gold digger, and spat on the ground even though Thomas was trying his best to hold him back. That was when I decided that I could no longer hide the truth from him anymore for Thomas's sake, and I told him everything. I tried to really rub it in his face and be as nasty as I could be because I felt like he deserved it, and I didn't even care that he was just 19 and that I was a grown woman arguing with him, since at that moment I just wanted to hurt him. I told him about how his father's business had been failing for the past 3 years and I had been the one carrying their dead weight. But instead of being grateful to me for it, he had tried to sabotage me. I also told him that I was the one who had been paying his college tuition so far, and even though his father had promised me that he would pay me back as soon as he could, it didn't matter because it was me who was doing it right now, so he had no right to speak to me that way or call me a gold digger because if anything, they were the ones who needed the gold and not me. I could see on his face that he was shocked beyond belief and was practically frozen in place, and so was Thomas. Then I wiped my tears and started walking away while booking a cab for myself so I could head to the place of the meeting. I didn't even turn around because I did not want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Thankfully, the meeting went well because I had left quite early and I reached quite early as well, but then I had had enough time to compose myself and put on a professional face, and my decision to travel in a cab instead of my own car didn't seem much of a big deal, so it was probably just in my head. When I came back home, I saw that my car was still in the same position, so I called my friend who runs a car repair shop and asked her to deal with it, and I don't know why, but just seeing my car in that condition made my heart break yet again, and I decided not to go inside the house. I got another cab and I went straight to a nearby hotel, and I haven't been home since then. The condition of my car made me realize just how disrespected I had been in my own home, all because Thomas couldn't stand up to his son, and I had had enough. After this, there was no way that I could go back to that house and try to make things right with them because they definitely did not deserve it. That day I kept waiting for at least Thomas to call me and check up on me after I returned from my meeting and went to the hotel, but even that did not happen. In the next day, when I woke up after a night of crying myself to sleep, I decided that I couldn't live with these people anymore, and love was obviously not enough to sustain a relationship, so I decided to call my lawyer and I told him that I wanted to file for a divorce. Then I called up my brother and I told him that I wanted him to go to my house, pack certain things, and then bring them to me because I just didn't even want to see Thomas or Rob. I explained the situation to him as well, and he helped me out by bringing me my things, but I guess when he went home instead of me to collect my stuff, Thomas realized that I was not planning on coming back home anytime soon, and he and his son started bombarding my phone with calls and texts. I muted all the notifications from them because I didn't want to think about them, but didn't block them because I wanted to know what they had to say, and before going to bed, when I finally decided to check the messages that they had been sending me, I realized that it was just them trying to apologize to me and telling me that they were willing to make everything right again, but all I had to do was just come back and speak to them once. I had expected that from Thomas, but the fact that even Rob was apologetic and was trying to tell me that he was ready to apologize and change as a person is what really took me by surprise. But I wasn't going to be fooled so quickly because it was very evident to me that they were only contacting me since they needed me to be there for them. If Thomas had really been sorry, then he would have contacted me the same day and apologized for everything. He wouldn't have had to wait to realize that I wasn't coming back home to apologize to me. In fact, even when I didn't return that day, he didn't contact me, and only when my brother went back to collect my things did he feel the need to reach out to me. So, the apologies felt very hollow and meaningless to me. And as for Rob, I didn't even need to think twice as to why he was apologizing to me. I had figured out that he needed a way to pay for himself through college, and so far I had been the one paying his tuition, so he obviously needed my help even now since he still had 2 years to go before he graduated. And since Thomas couldn't exactly help him out given his financial situation, I'm his only hope. And being the lazy brat that he is, I'm sure it didn't even occur to him that he could have just worked through college like most of us do or taken out a student loan. I was feeling very let down even though they had apologized because I knew that they did not actually mean that apology and they were just saying it because it was convenient. It took me a really long time to realize it, but I had finally come to the realization that I definitely loved Thomas a lot more than he loved me and a lot more than he deserved. But it was about time that I prioritized myself and let him go because for the past 6 years all he had done was make false promises and tell me that he was going to make everything right with me and Rob, but he had only enabled him so far because he would only tell Rob to be better, but there were never any real consequences to his actions, and that's why eventually Rob had found the audacity to do something like this and actually expect to get away with it. Anyway, I have spoken to my lawyer about the divorce, and I've also told him that I want to file a lawsuit against them because I want them to pay for the damage that they have caused to me. So, after reading those messages and realizing how fake their apologies were, I decided to write back to Thomas and I told him that I was going ahead with the divorce and there was nothing that he could do to me because I had waited long enough for them to come around. But since it was not going to happen anymore, I was not going to wait around either and allow myself to be disrespected like this over and over again. The next morning, I woke up to another 100 messages from him begging me not to leave and telling me that he was ready to do whatever it took to make me stay. He had also tried to call me several times throughout the night, but since I was asleep and had muted his notifications, I didn't know at that moment. I started to feel really annoyed because in his messages he was acting like he was genuinely ready to do whatever it took, and I knew that it was just him saying these things for the sake of it because he had said these things many times before as well. I had fallen for it earlier, but this time I decided to tell him that I was going to give him an ultimatum and if he was ready to make things work on my terms, then maybe I would come back. In reality, I did not have any intentions of going back because I had made up my mind after great difficulty and I was not going to go back on my word, but I just wanted to see what he would have to say about this. So, I texted him back and I told him that I would be ready to consider couples counseling and staying with him if he promised me that he would never speak to his son again and would totally cut Rob out of his life. I told him that was the only solution to this, and if he was ready to do that then we could talk, but otherwise I would be going through with the divorce. So, that was my ultimatum, and a couple of hours after that he sent me another message saying that he didn't know what to say to me because all Rob had was him, but he also loved me and he didn't want to give up on our marriage, so I had put him in a very difficult spot and he needed time to think. He was begging me not to go through with the divorce, but I told him that the fact that he was even considering this meant that neither I nor Rob were that important to him, and since he couldn't be loyal to either of us, it would be better for me to remove myself from the equation altogether and make things easier for him. Then I guess he figured out that I actually had no intention of coming back to him in the first place and he started accusing me of trying to mess with his head and playing mind games. His tone really annoyed me, so I decided to take screenshots of that conversation and send it to Rob, and then I turned my phone off because I didn't want to interact with either of them after that. It has been 2 days since then and Thomas has tried every possible way to get in touch with me because after I sent the screenshots to Rob, he left the house because he felt insulted by the fact that his father was even considering breaking ties with him to make his marriage work. So Thomas had pretty much been screwed over by both of us and he was blaming me for creating the situation, telling me that I'm the one responsible for his predicament at the moment and has been cursing me out, but I don't feel particularly bad about it. For the past 6 years, he had been constantly enabling his son and allowing me to get disrespected over and over again, and I thought that this was a very small way for me to get back at him in comparison to what I have been through. This is pretty much nothing. He has been claiming that he had done his best to strike the right balance between me and Rob and had always tried to keep both of us happy. But that's not true. I was never happy. Anyway, I don't feel particularly bad about what I did, but my brother thinks that I should have just let it go instead of trying to create a rift between the two of them. He told me that was just not worth it, and revenge is not something that he encourages generally, so it's pretty true character for him. I'm just confused about whether I should or shouldn't feel sorry about this, and I need people to validate my decision right now because I'm pretty emotionally volatile at the moment. So, AITA, because I purposefully created drama between my soon-to-be ex-husband and a son who always hated me? Edit. I stayed with him because I loved him, you guys, and when you love somebody, you allow yourself to get manipulated, and it just took me a lot to realize that maybe he didn't love me as much as I loved him. I think it's pretty common for people to do this when they are trying to take advantage of you, and that's exactly what happened to me, and I'm not going to be shamed for it. There's a difference between somebody being a doormat voluntarily and somebody like me who has been manipulated in the name of love. I was making sacrifices to make my relationship work, and it just took me a really long time to realize that I was the only one doing it, which was not fair to me. I can understand that people might feel that I'm a pushover because I stayed with him for so long, but I don't really care. I finally found the spine and the courage to leave him even though I still have some love for him in my heart. And for me, I think that's a big achievement, so I'm definitely not going to allow myself to be shamed. I made a mistake like a lot of people do, and I think it's completely fine. So thank you to everyone who has been kind to me, and to the ones who haven't been so kind, I don't really care. Update 1. Hey! Thank you so much to everyone who commented and supported me. I'm obviously going through with the divorce, and yesterday Thomas was served with the divorce papers. I don't think he's going to contest it, but I think we might have a snag because I've demanded quite a lot of settlement money since he had been living off of my dime for the past 3 years, and I would like to be paid back for all of that, but I don't think that right now, given his financial condition, he would be willing to pay me back. But no worries, we can always make it a long-term payoff situation. Anyway, that's not even a concern right now. We will deal with all of that during our mediation sessions if he tries to come up with his own terms. Some people have been worried that my brother and I had had a fallout over my behavior with him, but honestly, it was not that deep. My brother is a non-confrontational person, and he had just told me that he didn't think it was a good idea to interact with them even more in revenge and stuff, but it's not like he had told me to apologize for them or he had tried to cut me off. It had not been that dramatic. I'm sorry if it came off that way, but it was just a suggestion, and we haven't even spoken about it since then because neither does he think it's that important, and nor do I. Thomas and Rob have not tried to contact me for the past couple of days, which I am really grateful for because I don't want anything to do with them, and I just want some peace and quiet. I have moved out of the hotel that I was staying in, and I'm staying with a friend of mine right now. Hopefully, nobody's going to try and find me here. Update 2. Hi everyone. So, it has been a couple of weeks, and Thomas and I are going to attend our first mediation session tomorrow. Just like I had expected, he doesn't want to pay the amount that I have demanded as a settlement, which is weird because it was literally his son who had damaged my car, so if nothing else, at least he should offer to pay for that, and also I guess he has forgotten the fact that he had promised to pay me back. He hadn't signed a contract or anything, unfortunately, but I have several texts from him just casually conversing, and he has mentioned that he is definitely going to pay me back all the tuition that I have paid for as soon as he can afford to do it. So, even though I don't have a contract, I guess that's going to do for now. And for everyone who had been asking me why exactly I had left home, it's a rented house. Even though we had been trying to split our rent for the past couple of years, it was his name on the lease, and I didn't think it was worth fighting for, so I left. I've been looking for an apartment near my workplace, and as soon as I find one, I'm going to move out of my friend's place and start living on my own again. I can't exactly live with my brother because he has his own family as well, and they have tried to tell me that I am welcome at their house, but I don't want anybody to have to give up their room for me. Anyway, that's where it's at right now, and hopefully the mediation for the divorce will be over soon and I will be able to move on. I've already started actively trying to move on by throwing myself into my work, focusing on other things, and trying to take my mind off of Thomas. It's not easy even though I know that he was toxic to me and it's best for me to leave, but part of me is always going to have a soft corner for him, and I'm dreading having to see him tomorrow, but I know that this has to be done, and who knows, maybe he will mess up and I'll start hating him. Anyway, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for the best. I'm probably going to be very busy for the next couple of months until the divorce is finalized, and I don't think I'll have time to keep you guys updated on everything that happens, so if I post any other updates, it's definitely going to be after the divorce. Wish me luck, you guys. Update 3. Hey everyone, long time no see, you guys. So, just like I had promised you guys, I'm back after my divorce. My last update was probably around 7 months ago, and my divorce was finalized last week. Since then, life has been pretty much a non-stop party because these past months have been very difficult and draining for me. But now that it's finally over, I've been hanging out a lot more with my friends and family, and I'm planning a trip to Greece with a couple of my high school girlfriends. I've earned this treat for myself, and I'm going to try and enjoy my life to the fullest. As of now, the process of the divorce was pretty toxic, and I don't want to get into it, but at least at the end of it, I got back all the money that I deserved, and there's some more in store since he couldn't pay back all of it to me up front. Since then, Thomas has been playing the victim on his social media, and most of our common friends have taken his side because they think that I was too hasty in getting a divorce and have been pretending like I never really loved him in the first place because I found it so easy to leave him. They have also been referring to me as the gold digger and as the most materialistic person they know because I took back the money that I was owed. I guess I don't know how that makes me the villain, but I'm happy to know that these people have shown their true colors, and I know for a fact that they were never my true friends in the first place. I have cut them off and everybody else who was taking his side during the divorce. I don't need this kind of negativity in my life, and like I said, I'm going to be living it up to the fullest now. I have my friends and my family, and most apparently, I have found myself again, and that's all that I need. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My 53M daughter, 15F, is pregnant. How do I tell her that our older daughter, 31F, is actually her biological mother? Before I start telling this story, please take a moment and try to understand this image, since this is extremely crucial to understand the whole story. So, I, 53M, and my wife, Rose, 53F, had our older daughter, Sarah, 31F, when we were 22. We were young and broke but managed, and we raised Sarah the best we could. She got pregnant at 15. It was a very depressing time for her. She had to go to therapy and never told us anything about the father, which always upset her, so we never pushed the issue. She originally wanted to terminate but kept canceling and eventually told us she wanted to give her up for adoption. But 5 months into the pregnancy, when she was discussing with a social worker for a couple to adopt, the couple dropped out of the adoption. After trying to find more couples, Sarah asked us if we wanted to adopt. Me and Rose were both 38 at this point, and we had both been discussing having another child. So we ended up adopting our daughter, Ellie, when Sarah had her at 16. 2 years after Ellie, me and my wife had our son, Logan, 13, biologically. Growing up, we always planned on telling Ellie she was adopted, but we knew with telling her that we had to tell her Sarah was her bio mom. Sarah never became close with Ellie, not even as sisters. She moved out after the birth and lived with Rose's sister. She has always shown sisterly love to her Logan, but never towards Ellie. There have always been conflicting feelings with Sarah. I have seen posts on Sarah's Instagram where she posted a picture of what was supposed to be the 5 of us, but Ellie was cut out. I confronted her about this, and she says it's too painful. However, a couple years ago, she showed up drunk, begging us to let us see her daughter. We talked to her and let her stay but did not let her near Ellie since she was drunk. We found out from her husband she had suffered several miscarriages and was told to consider a surrogate. She ended up doing that 4 years ago and has since had twins, Jack and Jill, 3M and F, who are biologically hers. Ellie has loved being an aunt of the twins, and Sarah has encouraged this with Ellie and has been inviting Ellie over her house for family time with Logan, who loves being an uncle. We have asked Sarah that in light of the twins and Ellie being close to them, wouldn't it be time to tell Ellie the truth? But Sarah keeps claiming she is not ready. Recently, Ellie came to us and has told us she is pregnant. This time, it is a completely different situation. We have met the father. He is a childhood friend of hers, and they decided they wanted to lose their virginities to each other. We had the talk with Ellie long ago, as we did with Sarah. We approached the situation calmly and have since met with the father and his parents. Ellie is insistent on keeping the baby. She is 3 months along. We have not told Sarah yet. We do not know how to approach the situation. We don't know how she will be able to take it. Me and my wife are considering telling Ellie the truth, but we need Sarah to be there. Relevant comments from OP. Comment 1. Did you ever consider Sarah was raped and that's why she never told you about the father, wanted to terminate, and is incredibly distant from her daughter because she is the offspring of a rapist? Just a passing thought. OP. Yes. She has never said anything, but we have always suspected that is what happened. Her therapist would be the only person who knows, but whatever is said stays between them. Comment 2. Please discuss contraception with your son if you haven't already. Also, why is her being pregnant a nudge to tell her she is your other daughter's biological child? Wouldn't that be a bit much just this second? P. Yeah, we might hold off on telling her. But at the same time, we don't know how Sarah will react finding out Ellie is pregnant. We have had the talk with all 3 of our children about contraception. They didn't want to use protection the first time and thought being careful would not risk pregnancy. Comment 3. I did think this straight away. Wonder what will happen when one of them does an off-the-shelf DNA test. Probably will happen at some point. OP. I would not do a DNA test without Ellie knowing anything because if Sarah was assaulted, I would not want him around Ellie. Update November 7th, 2023. So, I decided to write in an update as I'm still getting messages on this account. First, I want to address the main issue I was wondering about. Advice on what to do after finding about my daughter Ellie, 15, is pregnant, but that we had the exact same situation with her older sister Sarah, 31, who is actually Ellie's biological mother. Well, I decided to just focus on helping out Ellie, who is 4 months pregnant. We didn't want to stress her out by telling her about the adoption yet. In fact, we know we should have already told her a long time ago, despite Sarah's emotions on the matter. It's not like we even knew the details on Ellie's father, so that would have been Sarah's talk. But we, as Ellie's parents, still should have told her the truth when she was younger. A week after I made the post, Ellie told family about the pregnancy. She had since told my parents, her boyfriend's grandparents, and then of course she has told Sarah. Sarah didn't react well but told her she would support her. Of course, Sarah reached out to us after, very upset, but said she was ready to talk to Ellie first about the adoption with us, and she said that she wanted to tell Ellie about her father alone. We sat down and had the discussion. Ellie was, of course, upset but calmed down after a while. She, of course, had questions about her father. Sarah had that discussion with her at the time. I didn't know what she was told, and it was none of our business. But Ellie told us she knows who he is and said she didn't want to reach out. So we moved on. The other day, I got a call from my sister-in-law, Renee, 31F, my brother's wife. She was angry and was asking what kind of sick ideas was Sarah putting in Ellie's head. She started mentioning stuff about Ellie's adoption. So after I got her to calm down, she told me what happened. She claimed that Ellie had messaged my brother, Ethan, 32, and told him about the adoption and wanted to talk to him. This confused me because me and Ethan don't talk much. We were never really close because we are 21 years apart. He was my mother's late child, and he always got along with mine and our sister's kids as they were all around the same age, and Ellie only saw him on the holidays. So telling him about the details in her life didn't make sense. Renee explained to me that Ellie claimed that Ethan was her father because that's what Sarah had told her, and told him that he was going to be a grandpa. I had to sit down for a while. I called Sarah and we had a long conversation. She told me that, yes, it was true that Ethan is Ellie's biological father. Sarah and Ethan were close when they were young. They were only 8 months apart. Sarah says that when they went through puberty, feelings changed and that every time she went to her grandmother's, they would hide away from everyone and have their own time. Sarah was upset talking about this but told me that he never assaulted her and that it was always consensual. She never wanted to tell me because she was ashamed of the fact that the father of her baby was her uncle. I have since talked to Ethan as well. He denied it to Ellie over text but told me that it was true. We exchanged a few words back and forth. Even if this was consensual, how could he sleep with his own niece? He had all these excuses, but I wasn't hearing it. He knew of the pregnancy and being Ellie's father the whole time, and he never even bothered to step up to say anything. I have talked to Ellie about it. She says she was upset when she found out, but she always thought she looked like my stepdad's side of the family. It upset me when she mentioned that because, honestly, I see it. It's pretty obvious now. I always knew that Ellie favored whoever her father was because she didn't look like anyone on our side. But I never suspected Ethan. My mother and stepdad have found out, and Ethan told Renee it was true. She has left with their kids to stay with her family. Ethan has tried to reach out to Ellie now, but I don't want her speaking to him. I'm still her father, and I don't think she is safe being in touch with him. Ellie has shown no interest in talking. I asked her why she reached out to him before talking to Sarah or us about it, and she said she just wanted to know his side of the story but feels betrayed for being lied to. Relevant comments. Commentator asked about family tree to clarify up relationships. Opie, I apologize. The reason I was so specific about it is because it's the reason we have always been distant. My father died when I was 20, and we were all devastated. My mother was as well, but then told us months after my father died she was pregnant by a coworker. They married 3 months before Ethan was born. Although we are distant, I'm the closest sibling who communicates. None of my sisters have anything to do with him. Comment 2. Sarah should have fessed up at the start. Did Ethan know Ellie was his when she was adopted? Surely it was no surprise. How could he go 15 years living a lie? Sarah 2. This is so messed up. Opie. Ethan knew about being the father of Sarah's baby. He wanted Sarah to abort, which is why she wanted to abort in the beginning, but she decided on adoption. Comment 3. Maybe it's time that your older daughter do for her daughter what you did for her. Opie. Ellie and her boyfriend fully intend on raising this baby as their own, with the support of me and my wife and his parents. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Wife confessed she repeatedly cheated on me while leaving me home alone to care for our special needs son. She doesn't regret it and refuses to move out until I buy back her share. Here's a not-so-brief state of our situation. I, 37, and my wife, 34. Our relationship has been strained lately, with her working nights and I work days because our son, 3 years old, has special needs. A standard babysitter isn't possible, and specialized care isn't available or financially feasible. He has a few hours a week at school in a therapy setting. Otherwise, he's with one of us. Because of the schedules, we've been like ships passing in the night most days. We got 10 minutes to see each other. Not a perfect situation, and it's something I wanted to fix. I've been sleeping in the guest room so that she can decompress and get some quality sleep alone. It was not something I wanted to do, but for her benefit, I thought it would help her sleeplessness. Our sex life has been non-existent for a long time. In the past few months when we have talked, she would mention things like, "We should try an open relationship because I don't like sex anymore, and you should be free to explore," and "Getting married has screwed up our finances. We should get an on-paper divorce." I never took her that seriously because she said them in such a joking tone. Lately, she has mentioned that she feels like we're great roommates. She has also wanted to go out with her friends more often on her nights off. I'm not the type for that, so I stay home with our son. Admittedly, a special needs child can be very difficult. Her having a night off was completely understandable. Come to 2 weeks ago, I asked to sit down and talk about our relationship. She agreed to talk the next day, and I actually sent her an email of questions I had on my mind. Questions like, how would you describe our relationship? And, do you want to share a bed anymore? And, most importantly, have you had sex outside of our marriage? We sat down after our son was in bed and had the talk. We talked for a few minutes about what she thought of our relationship. She said she doesn't see us as a couple anymore. She started to cry. Then she said, "You asked if I've had sex with anyone else. The answer is yes." It immediately hit me like a ton of bricks. I had asked the question more for peace of mind for me rather than a confirmation. I had suspicions before, but I thought they were all in my head. We talked for 2 hours. I said very little and tried to keep my anger in check. But here's what was revealed. She did not want to talk about the details of the other relationship with me. That doesn't matter. She admitted to it happening more than once, and it was premeditated. She had gone out with my blessing to hang out with friends, knowing that she was going to cheat. The affair is not still going on, but she was still talking to the person. She wasn't necessarily interested in a romantic or sexual relationship outside of our marriage right now, but she's open to anything. She didn't realize until recently that she's probably not really into the whole monogamy thing. As for our relationship, we're done, and she wanted me out of the bedroom completely. She wants to remain in the house to co-parent, not just because we have to, but because she wants to. You're a great dad, and that part of you I still really care about, she kept saying. We don't have to make any decisions right now, and I know it's a lot. Also, I don't hate you. I still care about you, and I'm sure you hate me. Since then, I've moved upstairs. I've initiated a separation of our finances and healthcare. That conversation resulted in her crying and saying, "This is a lot right now." But she has relented. She has also said that she's depressed and mourning losing her best friends and retreats to her room frequently. I've mentioned divorce, her moving out, and selling the house, all of which are returned with vague warnings of expense and difficulty and disrupting our son. Conversations with my friends say she's gaslighting me or manipulating the situation so that she gets to have her cake and eat it too. I've come to believe that having her move out may be difficult for our son, but it's what's best for my mental health, and that's ultimately best for my son. But I have no idea how to make it happen. I feel so lost and broken. Just typing this up has taken a few days because I can't get through it all. I think about is how I wanted to fix our relationship and how she put someone else above spending time with us. She used my dependability as a father for selfish reasons. Then think about being kind to her so that she can stay in our child's life. You will need both of us. It is sadness, then pain, then anger, then a few minutes of numbness before it starts again. Merry Christmas to me. I'll add a few more pieces of information as I said below. Some of the nights out were explained as work-related social events or with friends for work that I don't know. Obviously, now I can't trust that information very much. I'm sure that one of those nights she cheated. It was described as a mom's night off, where I took my son to play at an indoor playground so she could get ready, and then take an Uber out to a bar. Brutal when I realized that one. But I do know some of her friends. One of those friends is actually a female friend of mine from before the relationship. Let's call her Fran. Fran has not been in contact with us, but I've told her the situation, and she's been helping me very kindly. I haven't asked her to verify any alibis. I also learned through Fran that my spouse had told other mutual friends that her affair partner has a girlfriend. The girlfriend knows about the affair, and the affair partner is trying to repair the relationship. I don't know where that leaves my spouse or even how much I can trust Fran's information. She has apologized indirectly. She said, "I'm sorry that I hurt you," but she also explicitly said that she does not regret cheating. This week she works most days, but we're going to try to have a normal Christmas Eve day. Then I'm taking my son to see my family this weekend. I'll tell them what's going on then. She told her mom that we are not together and that she cheated. Her mom is sad about the situation. I'm talking about her moving out. She refuses to leave until we sell the house or I buy it back alone and she gets her share of the equity. She said, "That's fair if you're going to kick me out." Also, she said that if I tried to stop her from seeing our child, she would fight it. Those are the only two things she has been forceful or antagonistic about. She's open to seeing a divorce attorney or mediator whenever I want. I realized reading the above I may have made her out to be more manipulative and colder than she may be, but the facts are correct. So judge us as you will. Now on to the next story. Story 13. Discovered my girlfriend's pregnancy was the result of an affair at Bible camp. When she tried to pin it on me, I exposed the truth. My girlfriend, 25, and I, 27, have been dating for about 2 years. The first few months of the relationship were blissful, and for a while, I thought she was the one for me. We lived together in the same 2-bedroom apartment, feeding off of each other's monthly salaries. I work as a junior sales representative while she does some receptionist work at a 3-star hotel a few blocks from where I live. With that, it was safe to say that we were doing okay financially, and we were ready to take our relationship to a whole new level. One day, she took me to her parents' house, and we stayed there for 2 whole weeks. They were really nice to me, and I enjoyed the mini vacation, except for the no having sex under their roof part. But one thing I found interesting and a bit strange was how she was still in touch with family friends and all their children that she had grown up with. In this group of friends, there was one guy that in my eyes stood out as a big threat to our relationship. His name was David. He was 6 feet 2 inches, dark and tall, with a habit of always whispering in my girlfriend's ear and making her laugh. On several occasions, my girlfriend's mother used to jokingly refer to him as my competition, a joke that I don't normally take lightly. This development bothered me, so I decided to ask my girlfriend about him. She brushed me off the second time, this time saying, "You worry too much. I only have eyes for you." I still had my doubts about him, but he managed to reassure me in the end. One day, she and her whole family went on a Bible camp retreat for 1 week in the woods. I didn't bother to tag along because I wasn't too big on Christianity, plus I wasn't invited. My girlfriend said that some of their family friends were coming to the camp too, including David's parents. I asked if David would be there, and she said he wouldn't, so I didn't see any more reason to worry. 2 days into the retreat, calls to her number stopped going through. I tried and tried again, but still her phone was switched off. So I stopped trying and waited for her to come back. When she was back, I asked her about her phone being switched off all the time, and she said, "We were in the woods, what do you expect?" So I didn't ask again. I also asked if David was there with them, and she said he wasn't, so for a while I believed we were fine. Fast forward to about 2 months after her trip. I attended the birthday party of one of my closest friends at the club. There was a familiar face who kept on staring at me until I walked up to her to talk. She introduced herself as Angela and said we had met before at my girlfriend's dad's house. She was David's girlfriend, who came with him on one of our visits to my girlfriend's house. We talked about a lot of things, and it turns out that I wasn't the only one who was insecure about my girlfriend's and David's weird relationship. She told me how he left her all alone for 1 week in the name of some Bible camp she was sure my girlfriend also attended. I didn't tell her she was right or that my girlfriend had told me that David wasn't there. I just nodded in agreement to everything she said, too confused and betrayed to say another word. When I got home, I decided not to jump to any drastic conclusions. I needed leverage over her, some evidence to prove my doubts, so I decided to check her phone, which was the only place I could find what I was looking for. So one day, when she was in the shower, I snooped, and as soon as I unlocked it, her messaging app immediately popped up on the screen, with David's name being the first on the list. From the look of it, I realized they were fighting about something. But what? I decided to look deeper, and behold, there it was, the greatest betrayal I ever experienced in my lifetime. She told him she was pregnant with his baby, but he denied it, saying that he wasn't the only partner she had. She told him that it wasn't possible for the baby to be mine, that she had done an ultrasound, and according to the results, the time wasn't right as we weren't intimate during that 1 week of camp and a few weeks preceding and immediately after that week due to circumstances, but mostly because of her own reluctance. He then proceeded to blame her for seducing him throughout camp and told her that he wasn't ready to be a father just yet. After about a full page of insults and red-faced emojis, they both decided to pin the pregnancy on me. It was better for everyone that way since I loved kids so much and he didn't want anything to do with the child. I was shocked beyond words that I wasn't sure how I still managed to take a screenshot of the chat and send it to my phone before she was done showering. The following day, she dropped the bomb on me. She told me that she had news for me and didn't know if it was good or bad news, depending on how I would take it. Then she said she was pregnant. I wanted to react, to ask more questions, but I figured it was only going to make her suspicious. So I smiled and embraced her and said it was wonderful news. She went to work that day feeling happy and oblivious to what was really on my mind. I called my lawyer friend for advice, and he told me that I needed to order a prenatal paternity test via a court as proof that I wasn't the father before the baby was born, and she put my name on the birth certificate. My brain was befuddled as I didn't know where to start. If I asked her nicely, she would know something was up and refuse. If I asked her forcibly, she would outrightly refuse. I couldn't think of anything else, so I decided to pack my bags and leave the house. She began to call my phone and tried so hard to reach me when she realized I was gone. I didn't pick up, blocking her number eventually. About a week after I left, she decided she was ready to announce to the world that she was expecting, posting her baby's ultrasound on Facebook. She captioned it with a cuffing speech about the joys and sorrows of motherhood. Then she tagged me in the post. Someone asked who the father was in the comments, and that was when she began dragging me, telling everyone that I ran away and deserted my child. I couldn't take it anymore. All the manipulations, all the lies. I had to react fast and clear my name, so I made a post on my FB page with a screenshot I took from her phone where they both admitted it was his baby and agreed to pin the pregnancy on me. I tagged her and captioned it, "I don't think so." In only a matter of minutes, the post exploded, and that was when all hell broke loose. She kept spamming me on Messenger, asking me to take down the post, begging and pleading, asking me to think about our child and not embarrass her like that. My posts got flooded with likes and comments, and my inbox was full of her family spamming me, calling me every name under the sun, and people who were curious and concerned about me. I refused to take the post down. Why would I even? David snuck into my DM and typed, "Not cool, bro. Not cool. I don't think so. Pinning a child that isn't mine on me, now that is not cool." I managed to get a pre-paternity test with the help of her parents, who just wanted closure from all the embarrassment and to find the real dad to pin the child's support on him. The court decided that the baby wasn't mine, and my lawyer sent her a cease and desist to prevent her from putting my name on the birth certificate. Once it was all over, we went our separate ways, and now I'm in a very serious relationship with Angela, David's ex-girlfriend. The both of us have gone through so much in the hands of those two monsters that now it was only right we found love in each other's arms. Now on to the next story. Story 14. Wife cheated 6 years ago. I forgave her and everything was perfect until my sister asked if I wanted to spend my life with someone who betrayed me. Hello, everyone. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we have a daughter who's 18. She graduated high school a few months ago. Around 6 years ago, I found out that my wife was cheating on me and having an affair, which lasted for a couple of months. I really wanted to divorce, but my wife was really remorseful. She quit her job, she started going to therapy. She promised all reconciliation steps I asked for. Ultimately, I did decide to stay with my wife for her sake and for our family's sake too. For around 5 years, everything was actually going great, and we had date nights, romantic vacations, and we really loved each other. However, on the 6th year, the whole thing resurfaced back on my mind and I just couldn't get my mind off it. I finally made my decision after a particular line for my sister struck a chord with me. She said, "Would you really want to use the gift of life and spend it with someone who had betrayed you so badly?" She told me this a couple of days before my daughter's graduation, and that's when I finally decided I couldn't do it anymore. A day before my daughter's graduation, I informed my wife of my decision and told her that I would be filing for divorce soon. My wife was shocked and she cried a lot and told me she would do anything, but I told her that my decision was final. My daughter's graduation in itself was great, and I was really proud of my daughter, and my wife seemed happy too. But my daughter could sense something was wrong and asked me why her mom seemed down and trying to fake a smile. I told her not to worry about it and to just enjoy the day. The next day, however, I told my daughter I would be filing in for divorce, and my daughter seemed shocked. She said how I could do this to her mom before graduation, and that's why her mom couldn't enjoy the graduation. I told her it's none of her business, but we'll both always love her regardless. My wife and I are now going through divorce proceedings. Comments where Opie has replied. Comment 1. Why couldn't you have waited a few days? Also, if you were happy, why did you let that line from your sister affect you so much? Are you easily influenced by others? Is the appearance of having always had a perfect marriage so important to you? Isn't the point to get a deeper and deeper understanding of the other person and ourselves? Opie. It wasn't just that line, and it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. I was dwelling on it for the past year or so and talking it out with my sis. She told me that it was finally time I put myself first and that I deserved to be with someone who would unconditionally love me, someone who would be there for me through thick and thin, and someone who would never betray me. Comment 2. I would have waited a bit after her graduation since you already waited so long. Her graduation was marred due to her mom having to fake joy. Your daughter clearly picked up on it. Now she finds out the day after, further marring her memory of that day. You're not the a-hole for deciding on a divorce, but your timing was a bit assholish. Opie. I just wanted to be honest and transparent with my wife once I made the decision. I was also able to enjoy my daughter's graduation, and a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My daughter's graduation day was the proudest day of my life. Comment 3. Are you having a midlife crisis? You forgave her. You waited 6 years. Did a young chick make it so these memories resurfaced and then you made the graduation about the divorce? Your daughter will forever remember that. Yes, YTA. Opie. My daughter did have a really good time, and the graduation party was great too. We took lots of pictures, and I'm sure she will remember the day fondly. The next day, however, I told my daughter about the divorce because she kept asking me about why her mom seemed so down. I did not really want to break the news to her so soon after graduation, but I really had no choice because she wanted to know the truth. My daughter, of course, was really sad about hearing it, and she even broke down in tears. But divorce is just a part of life, and both me and her mom still love her. She is at college now, and I'm sure she'll get over it soon, and I don't really have a midlife crisis or some other woman. I'm not even looking to date, at least for the next few years. My focus is on myself and my family of origin. Comment 4. Get it, it's tough, but the timing was terrible. Your daughter deserves joyful memories, not family chaos on her graduation day. She'll remember this forever. Update October 26, 2024. My daughter called me last night and told me she came across the post I had posted, and after reading my comments, she asked how I could be so cruel to her mom. She then told me she was going to temporarily go low contact with me. I did tell her I know she's going through a lot and I'll always be there for her. But I'll respect her decision to go low contact, so that's not really the best news, but life does move on. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.